I had a meeting today actually with I think his name's Deepak. I don't remember.
Wow.
I don't know. Dude, he doesn't have his name anywhere on social media. I swear to God. But I'm pretty sure his name's Deepak. He runs It's Not That Deep podcast. Dope podcast. You guys go check that out as well. Yeah.
Then come right back here and watch ours.
Well, yeah. But, you know, had a sick ass meeting with him.
Sweet.
Talked a lot about podcasts and like a little bit of analytics and stuff like that. Gave him some cool ideas because I find it's very tough to have a podcast kind of by yourself.
Yeah.
In a way, because like
you don't have ideas to bounce back, right? Like we can just bounce back.
Exactly. And if one of us mumbles or stutters, then like the other one hops in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, after that meeting, came back, edited the video from our project on Saturday.
Not bad.
Which it's coming along. I need to kind of almost redo it, but not redo it. I don't know how I feel about it yet. I'll have you look over it after.
Yeah. We'll do.
And then played COD, got real angry at it, and now we're having a podcast.
There you go. Not bad, not bad. Oh man, that was a long night, bro. I was up till like 5 a.m.
Oh yeah, you were working on your website, eh?
Yeah. I don't know why.
Hey, it looks a lot cleaner though.
Oh yeah, I know. Because I was just editing pictures from yesterday's shoot. Got them done.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Sent them over to the boss, and then I was like, let's just keep working, bro. I'm on a grind. I'm like, let's go.
That's fair.
Start coding, get my whole website done. Jeez.
Yeah, if I get into a mood, I'm just in that mood and I'm grinding.
Oh yeah. So that happened. I was up till 5 a.m.
What time did you wake up at then?
10:30, not even.
Damn, you're up before me, dude.
Well, I had a meeting afterwards.
Oh, true. Yeah,
so I can't miss that meeting.
Yeah. Very true.
That's for next week's shoot. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, guys, welcome back to Born to Create podcast. Yeah, I totally forgot what I was gonna say there, and we're just gonna roll with it. Anyways,
intro.
Make sure to check us out on YouTube. You know, hit that subscribe button and click the bell. It does help a lot. Also, if you're listening to this on iTunes or Spotify, do leave us a 5-star rating. And if you guys are listening to this podcast or you see any of our posts and stuff like that, you know, just share it on your story. Help us grow. Help us help more creators as like yourself. Yeah.
You know it's a late podcast when this guy can't speak for shit.
Dude, I'm just gone right now. Anyways, let's introduce our guest. He has a podcast called My Social Life that is 61 episodes in and has already recorded episodes to January 20th. He's doing a lot better than us, but he runs social media for Red Blacks. He has also done social media for the 67s. Welcome our good friend, Jacob Kelly. You remember the lights this time?
Bro, I'm on point.
Dude, you're moving up in this world.
I know.
Welcome, man. Welcome.
What's going on, guys? I'm excited to be here. I'm in a good mood today, so I'm hoping we get some good shit out of this.
It's good. It's good. You like my amazing intro?
I do. And like, do you guys watch Impulsive?
Yeah.
Is that like, I feel like I'm on Impulsive right now because you have the inner dialogue between you two and then you introduce your guest after a couple of minutes. So I feel like I'm on Impulsive right now.
Yeah. The table is somewhat the same setup, you know.
We just don't have the giant ass Born to Create logo on it, but you know, look at there.
Yeah. His setup is like $80,000.
Yeah.
He was talking about it on one of his podcasts. Mm-hmm. Insane. That's like his whole lights are all custom. The table is custom with the Maverick on it. Insane, bro.
Every single light is like all connected to a different circuit, so you can put on every single box can be on a different light and shit like that.
Insane.
That's wild.
Yeah.
No, my podcast setup's like $200.
There you go.
Yeah, ours is probably about 5 or 6,
give or take.
Maybe. Yeah, well, I'd say 5 or 6, but not bad. I mean, it's not about how much you spend on the podcast; it's the quality of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything currently in the works for you?
Nothing too crazy. Just kind of trying to get as many podcasts done as I can. I think YouTube would obviously be something cool I'd like to get into. I have a couple ideas written down for videos, but it's just the execution of doing the videos with working and doing the podcast, because as you guys know, podcasts take a lot of time. So I would like to do YouTube, like not for the podcast, for myself, kind of talk social media, different things like that. I have a couple ideas written down, more talking head stuff than vlog style, because vlog style is kind of what I used to do a lot in the past. So if I can kind of get some of that done, like take a Sunday and bang out like 3-4 videos, I think that'd be awesome. But just trying to figure out timing and stuff. But coming into Christmas, things are busier. So a YouTube channel would ideally be on the way, but right now it's just kind of focusing on the podcast.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Man. Makes sense. Podcasts do take a long time to edit.
Holy, especially video, man.
Yeah. Well, and like a research and everything else behind it, which is kind of like the main topic of this episode. Talk a lot about podcasts. Don't kind of have a set plan, but don't really have a set plan. Want to see where this thing goes, and also talk a little bit about social media. And then we have a couple of questions from people from Instagram and a lot of random emojis from people from Instagram.
Sweet. So have fun answering those.
Yeah. So, what's your favorite episode that you've recorded so far?
See, I get asked that question all the time, and I can't pick a favorite episode.
Let's go through your most impactful episode then,
on
you personally. So the person that impacted you the most.
Again, that's a tough question to ask, right? Like I can't pick one episode. Just kind of like some ones that stand out. I think the Just Dustin one's one that always comes to mind. Just because in his videos, he's like sometimes literally bouncing off the wall, like jumping and kicking off the wall and like doing crazy stuff. And he's so high energy. And I got him for 2 hours in his warehouse where he films all his videos in a completely different like mindset than anyone ever gets him. Like he was sitting back in a chair, just chilling, talking to me about YouTube analytics for 2 hours, which is like, it's like an environment no one's really gets him in, like in a recorded setting, right? So that one kind of comes to mind. Obviously the Caleb Ralston and Brandon Hatcher episodes when I got into Vayner, those ones come to mind. The whole New York trip itself was pretty sweet. But Justin Odisho is probably another one. Again, it's the YouTubers and the Gary V's just that come to mind just because those are two worlds that I've kind of never really been in. I've just kind of observed from an outside, but then through the podcast, I'm kind of able to work my way into those worlds. So those are kind of ones that come to mind.
Yeah, that's pretty sweet.
Nice.
I'm kind of cheesing myself for not going to New York, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, you missed out, man. His passport was off. His expired.
No,
The
I
worst
remember
thing,
that.
The worst thing was my mom told me like a couple days before to go get it, and I'm like, nah, I don't need this. Should have went. Fuck.
Yeah.
Fuck, that would have been sick, man. Oh my god.
Any other trips planned for?
Not right now
podcast?
for the podcast, and especially because when I went to New York too, I didn't have like a good workflow in for remote recordings. I think I'd done 2 at that point, and one of them turned out okay, but one of them was just an absolute gong show. So I didn't really have a remote recordings in place. So that's why I was like, you know what? Like I'll go to New York to try and expand the reach of who I can interview.
Yeah.
And it was also kind of like a thing to work towards because I said there's like once I hit 15 podcast episodes, I can like book a trip and go to New York and try and get episodes there. And kind of the genesis of that is when Andy Kranak, who's like Gary V's assistant, or not assistant, but he's like the head of Team Gary V basically. He put out like, hey, Twitter asked me a question. And I was like, hey, Andy, like I've decided to do this trip to New York once I hit 15 podcasts. Will you be on the show? And he's like, yeah, episode 16 sounds sweet. So once he kind of said yes, I was like, okay, this trip is happening now. And then I got Parviz Dov, who helped Casey Neistat shoot his intro and stuff a couple weeks later. And I was like, okay, this trip is definitely happening. Then I invited Hayden. And then that's kind of it all just kind of, we started messaging people all the time. And funny enough, Andy Kranak actually didn't end up having time to be on the podcast. Just schedules didn't end up lining up. So maybe now I haven't reached out to him since, but maybe I'll kind of reach back out to him again. But all of that to say no trip right now because I've got a good enough workflow where I can record remotely with anybody anywhere. And honestly, the remote recordings are easier than in person.
Yeah, that's fair.
So what do you use for that? Like what program?
I use a program called Zencastr, which was recommended to me by Seth Feingersh, who ran Gary's podcast for a couple of years. So when I recorded with him, he was like, yeah, let's use this program called Zencastr. Like, this is what we use. And I was like, hey, sweet. And I use that one because it yields the best audio quality for a remote podcast. It like honestly, the drawbacks is you can't do it on mobile and you can't use AirPods. So I always have to tell people like, don't use your AirPods when you record. But if they have just the standard wired Apple headphones, it sounds fine. Like I recorded a podcast the other day, sounds fine, and he used wired Apple headphones. And the other big bonus is like my Wi-Fi isn't very good at home. So if I've had this actually happen one time, you say if, but this actually happened. My Wi-Fi once just shut off for 30 seconds in the middle of a podcast. The girl on the other side didn't know because it records on both sides. So she's just on a long enough tangent that she doesn't realize I'm gone. She just thinks I'm still listening. I get my Wi-Fi after panicking for 30 seconds. I get my Wi-Fi back up. Everything's good. Like everything's good. I jump back onto my laptop with my headphones in. She's still going because her point was long enough that she didn't realize I was gone. And because it records on both sides, the only thing I had to do was take out me being like, I think I lost you. Hello. I just removed that, and you can't even tell because it recorded on her side too. So her audio wasn't affected at all. So that's the other reason I use it, because it goes into both computers and records. So it yields good audio quality. Only other drawback, there's no video, but I sacrifice that for if anything happens, the audio will still be there and the quality's good.
Yeah, that's solid.
Damn, that's pretty sick. Did she realize you were gone at all?
She said my follow-up question was a little bit weird, so she was kind of confused, but she didn't really she didn't know why. So we kind of joked about it after, because I literally told her like, oh, the reason I use this program is for everything I just listed. And she's like, oh, cool. And then after the fact, I was like, yo, my Wi-Fi actually cut out. She's like, oh, okay. I think I know what you're talking about, because your follow-up question was kind of weird, but like it wasn't big enough to the point where she was like, what are you like? Were you not even listening? So yeah, so it's only happened once, but it's been great so far, and it's completely free as well. So It's awesome.
Good. So yeah, like tip for that would be hardwire yourself straight to Ethernet.
Yeah.
So you're not like on Wi-Fi. So if it does happen,
Yeah.
but that's crazy.
It all depends on where your box is too, though.
Yeah, like I live in a 1-bedroom apartment with my girlfriend, so it's like, but my Wi-Fi is just not like, I live in a 1-bedroom apartment, shouldn't not be able to reach anywhere. But like in terms of like hardwiring my laptop in, like I'm the most like non-technologically like when it comes to my podcast, like I've just kind of like scrapped it all together and figured it out, and I have a workflow that works for me both in person and remotely, and I just kind of like
there you go
get it done. Like if somebody like that was like an audio engineer came and watched me do my podcast, I'd be like, what the fuck are you doing?
Oh, same here, man. They'd be like, the fuck's this setup?
Yeah, right. Like you just got to do it.
Hey, it works. Okay.
I
know. Maybe we should have an audio guy on, and we'll go over that.
Oh yeah,
he can give us tips.
Put foam all over the place, man. Foam this whole place out, and it'll be nice and clean audio. But
yeah.
No, they actually it's on one of Peter's video. It's a giant ball that you put on mics now, and it's supposed to like remove all like outside noise and everything like that.
Interesting.
It's on like Peter's newest video. It's like a ball like this big.
Yeah,
you're talking Peter McKinnon.
Yeah.
But then you have like 3 big balls.
I know it looks weird, but like, do you want good audio or do you want to look like what are you going
it'll just
for?
be like it'll just look like a Yeti, which is like 3 times the size, like the round ones.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's true. That's true.
The snowballs.
What are some things you struggled with when you first started out?
Saying yeah.
Like, yeah, okay.
You know what I mean? So like I remember because Hayden, who was on a couple episodes ago, was my first guest, and I remember that episode took me so long to edit because every time he would say something, like he couldn't even be finished point. He'd just be like taking a breath, and I'd be like, yeah, every single time. And so like even now, like there's still like words like I'll like kind of fall into as like a pattern. Like right now, my pattern I caught myself yesterday is that's awesome, and then into my question, which is like so something I struggle with at the beginning a lot, and even a little bit now is just like those filler words that you use like to kind of transition from when they're done talking to when you're talking, like because I want to acknowledge what they just said without jumping into my question, but by doing that I fall into using the same way to acknowledge it every single time. So it's just those words. Just audio editing as a whole kind of took me a little while to figure out. I was telling Frank on my over here now, my total time to edit audio, video, social clips is about 3-4 hours now. So I've got it down to like a science, but it took me forever. Like it used to take me 24 hours to edit a podcast and everything. So it's like, and doing that as a one-man show was like a grind. So now it's like, I've kind of got it down. So it was just figuring out how to edit everything and how to get my audio to be like a good quality. And the thing that I struggle with even today is being good enough and not perfect. I often say perfect isn't perfect, good enough is perfect, because I will stress myself out so much trying to get quote unquote perfect sounding audio. Like with the Just Dustin episode, I hear it and I think it's brutal. But like I listen to my girlfriend, like, can you hear that like echo kind of like after every word? And she's like, I can't hear a thing. So it's like I get in my own head when I'm trying to edit. So I think that's something like a lot of people do is they're trying to make whatever they're working on perfect. But to get it to perfect, it's like the little 1% things that no one else is going to notice but you. But if you stop it at good enough, you're going to save yourself a ton of time, be able to produce more, and you're not going to stress yourself out because no one else is going to notice those little things you're trying to fix to make it perfect.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
That's one thing I like about how we have 2 people. It's like, yo, does this sound bad? No, fuck it. Okay, we're good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we had to do that a couple of times.
Oh,
audio was just like our whole mics would just not work. Like you can hear my voice in your mic, like everything would just like rebound.
It
so we got
brutal. So we literally just used on-camera audio for that,
which was bad.
Yeah.
Which is funny because the whole episode we were talking about how we should have backup audio recording, but we didn't even have our Rode mics on our cameras or anything. It was just literally in-camera audio.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
It was still bad, but I mean, it was better than our
it was good enough.
So yeah,
it's like hell with it.
Yeah,
exactly.
Fuck it. Besides Gary V, like what guest would you love to have on your podcast?
Philip DeFranco.
Oh shit. Okay.
I don't know if you guys watch him. I watched, so he's like, he does news and stuff, and I've been watching Philip DeFranco since I was 15, so I'm going on probably almost 7 years of watching Philip DeFranco. Pretty much every single video he puts out on his main channel, like his news videos, like his bonus stuff, and he has a second channel I don't watch, but like I watched pretty much every Philip DeFranco video since I was 15 years old, so to have the ability to sit down and talk to him for like an hour would be crazy. I know that's a big one because he's tough to get a hold of. I think Phil's a big one. I think Casey obviously is a natural one, like just from YouTube, he's one of an extremely influential creator on YouTube from like he revolutionized vlogging entirely.
Big time.
Yeah.
Like, he started it pretty much.
Yeah, well, so like it was around, but it was like people like iJustine, like iPhone vlogging, and like people like this is me going to the grocery store. But Casey like turned into an art form, and so it'd be really cool to kind of talk to him. I think about this all the time. Like, who would I want? Like, if I could have anybody, and obviously Gary Vee's a big one. But I've also thought about like Gary Vee too, and it's like if I could pick one person, it wouldn't be Gary, because Gary's so accessible and he's done so much that it wouldn't be like a crazy interview to do, right? Because what hasn't Gary said?
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
To be fair, I do have a note. I have a couple notes in my phone of like one for Phil, one for Gary. I think that's it right now. But it's like if I ever get them on the podcast, from the last 3-4 years of me listening to them, I've written down, like, I just started this a couple months ago, but whenever they say something that they've never expanded on, or I've never really heard them talk about, and like they just kind of glance over it, I write it down on my phone. So if I do ever get that interview, I'm going to have like a backlog of questions that they don't normally get asked or things I'm looking for more context on that they've said. So I'm trying to like slowly prepare for something that might not ever happen, but if it does, I'll be even more prepared going into it.
See, my one question for him is, what does his wife do?
Interesting.
It's the most random thing.
Yeah.
But I've always been curious about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he never talks about it, never talks about that or anything. You know? So it's just the one question I would ask and just see if he answers it or not.
True. I found his daughter on Instagram one day.
Shit.
Totally random. It's a complete side tangent. But yeah, I was just Googling, or not Google, I was on Instagram. I just searched up Vaynerchuk, and like she came up. It was like, I think her name's Misha. She came up and she was followed by AJ, and like the photo of this girl, I was like, there's no way this isn't Gary Vee's daughter. Like, it just looks like a little girl version of Gary, and it's followed by AJ. Gary doesn't follow her though, which I thought was interesting. But
right.
AJ follows her, so it's like, I'm pretty sure this is Gary's daughter. But just kind of the one question I can think of right now that I asked Gary is, I was listening to his podcast one time, and he just subtly mentioned and moved right over it that he built a mini putt course in his backyard one day and was like charging kids to come play mini putt in his backyard. But he just like touched on it and moved on, and I was like, wait, whoa, what?
What?
So it's like shit like that where like he'll say it and just be like, okay, but anyways, moving on. And I'm like, no, come back to that. And so I'll write that down on my phone. So if I do ever get the chance, it's going to help me differentiate that interview, because so many of Gary's interviews are like the same thing, right? So it's like, especially in the Gary Vee case more so than the Phil case, but in the Gary case, I'm trying to, if that ever does happen, and I think it will eventually, but I want to come in with an angle most people don't. And the only way I'm going to do that is by preparing for a couple of years until it does actually happen.
Yeah, that'd be a great conversation.
Yeah, it'd be cool. I mean, it'd be sweet. And I think like I could potentially pull it off one day, but I'm not like, I don't want to reach out to anybody like that I've interviewed from Vayner and be like, yo, can you get Gary on the podcast, right? Like, I don't want to do that, because that's my big thing when it came to the Vayner interviews, was like, I want these people to know that I'm there to interview them. I'm not there to talk about Gary like through them. You know what I mean? So I made sure that each of those podcasts was about that individual person. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we're going to talk about Gary and Vayner because that's such a huge part of their narratives. And a lot of them are like, they're in it, right? Like, a lot of people, what is it? They're drinking the Kool-Aid is what someone said to me about the Vayner employees. Because like, you hear them say things that Gary says, right? Once they've worked there for so long, they're so bought in that they start talking like him. But I wanted to make sure that they knew it was about them. Like, I wasn't just like a crazy Gary fan that wanted to talk to them about Gary. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
Nice.
Where do you think social media is headed in the future?
In terms of what?
I didn't really think too much about this question.
Just shooting questions.
Yeah. That's fair.
But this is like apps. Like, where do you think everything's headed? Like, I guess kind of let's go to the dating route.
The dating route, okay.
Do you think like dating will be easier through social media in the future, or do you think it's already there? Because I know like, you know, Mike Malak, obviously from Impulsive. I know he just released like a video dating app, kind of like Tinder, but for video.
Interesting. Okay.
So like that route, like where do you think social media will be in the future for like dating wise?
For dating, that's tough, right? Cause like I personally never really, I used Tinder for probably like 2-3 months, and that was it. So I don't have too much context on like dating from like a social media perspective, but I think like in terms of making things easier, I think we're already kind of there, right? Like when I think about it from time to time, it's like, what did people used to do? Like, did they like go into like, how everyone had to go pick someone up somewhere? Like, how did that, like, you know what I mean? Or it was like meeting through a friend. Whereas now it's like you have access to everybody, whether it be through Instagram or Tinder or Bumble or whatever you use. Like, it just makes that introduction for you. And that's just so much easier than trying to make that introduction for yourself or trying to find someone to introduce you to that person. So I think we're already there in terms of it being easier.
Yeah. I kind of find it harder now.
Really, eh?
Almost, because like if you can message that person, let's say someone else can't. You know, so it's almost like who's kind of first to the race type of thing, almost. Like first to the finish line type of thing, you know?
Again, like I don't have too much context on it because like I haven't used Tinder in a long. I've been a dating my girlfriend for over 3 years now. So it's like, it's been a minute since I've kind of been in that game, but I think that's interesting. Again, like it's just something that'd be cool to like have those. I try to have those conversations with like a perspective that I don't necessarily have, just to try and like, because having just a one-sided perspective isn't a good thing.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. What's your plan with TikTok? Because I know you're on TikTok.
Yeah, so TikTok's interesting, and I think like people are like debating whether it's gonna be a fad or not. And someone actually sent me a podcast yesterday about apparently like the US is looking into TikTok because it's like owned in China, right? And there's like sensory things that they're not too stoked on. So I think like right now that could be the biggest killer of TikTok is like if the government steps in and like we think you're doing some shady shit, like you shouldn't be doing it. But right now my current plan on TikTok is like when I first started on TikTok, I was like just trying to be funny, right? Like I was trying to like do the jokes, like jump on the memes and whatever. And like I didn't really get many views. I had one that got like 300 and that was me making fun of myself for not going viral yet, which is kind of going to be it. I think I'm going to stick with like those kinds, but like I do like random things. Like I had like, it was just like my ceiling and it said, wait for it. And I put on like the Panini song in the background and I like jumped into frame. And like a Panini filter came in my face and I said, hey, Panini. And that was it. So it's just like stupid stuff. And I'm like, this isn't like what I'm trying to make my brand about anywhere else. So it doesn't make sense for me to be on TikTok making these like comedy videos when my brand elsewhere, like on Instagram, I don't do comedy. On LinkedIn, I don't do comedy. Twitter, I don't do comedy. So why am I trying to do comedy on TikTok? So I thought about it for a little bit. And how I kind of pivoted it was I decided I was going to still use TikTok, but talk about the things that I would talk about elsewhere. So social media, branding, podcasting, marketing, stuff like that. But I'm going to talk about it in a way that's native to TikTok. So instead of doing, like, I don't know if you guys use TikTok or people listening use TikTok, but like one trend is like people will like point at places in the air and they'll put the words over top of it to like make a joke. But instead of when I'm pointing in the air, instead of it being a joke, I'm just talking about social media. So I'm talking about everything that I want to talk about, but in a way that's contextualized and makes sense to the audience on TikTok. And I'm also trying to figure out ways that like, what is it going to be interesting to that younger demographic right now? Because I think it is going to start to age up. Like it's just reaching such scale. I think it has like 1.5 billion downloads or something. I saw a stat recently. So it's like, it's going to start aging up. So instead of just trying to conform to what's popular on there right now, I'm going to try and carve out a niche for myself now before everyone else gets there. And I mean, I've seen a little, like nothing too crazy. Like I get more views on TikTok right now than I do on either of my Instagram accounts. I tweeted out recently, like it took me 6 years to get over 1,000 views on Instagram. And that was through someone sharing my podcast. But it took me 0.25 years to get over 1,000 views on TikTok.
It's crazy.
So like the organic reach is interesting right now. I think the algorithm is super duper fascinating because what TikTok does that's different from the other social networks is it curates the top content and shows it to you. Whereas like, because everyone on TikTok consumes through the explore page, right? I don't know if you guys have it or not. The For You page is what it's called on TikTok.
Yeah.
So that's where everyone consumes through for the most part. And no one really consumes through the explore page on Instagram. Like they will a little bit, but what Instagram does that's interesting is like, I'll like one basketball photo on the explore page and Instagram will be like, here's 700 basketball photos because you liked that one. Whereas TikTok, it's like, this is performing well on the platform. It's promoting the best content. So it's going to keep you engaged longer because instead of just showing you a bunch of things that it thinks you like, it's going to show you a bunch of things that everyone's been liking. So it allows the top content, the best performing content to rise to the top, which doesn't, like other social platforms don't do that as well as TikTok. So one, that's good from a consumption perspective because you're going to keep people on the platform longer by showing them the best content. But then as a creator too, like if you can create that good content, because people always say good content rises to the top, which it does to an extent, but it's trying to get discovered. That's a difficult aspect, right? Like good content, I've seen good content with like not many views, but TikTok, if it's really good content, people will engage with it. And if people are engaging with it, TikTok's just going to keep promoting it up and up the algorithm. How it works is it just shows it to a couple people. If they engage, they show it to more. If they engage, they show it to more, and on and on and on. And I think there's some like geolocation in terms of the algorithm as well, because like I'll get a bunch of stuff from like Ottawa and Ontario. So there is an aspect of that with TikTok. But I think right now it's just the way the algorithm works is it's promoting the good content. So if I can get like talk about things on TikTok that I think would interest a 12 to 18-year-old demo in a way that they're used to consuming it on TikTok, I think that will help me grow a little bit. I've got 100 followers right now, but I think another thing with TikTok too is as everyone I know jumps on TikTok, they follow me now because I just keep talking about it. So they know I'm like the quote unquote TikTok guy in like all of my like friend and work circles. So that's kind of a long-winded answer of what my TikTok strategy is right now.
Yeah, it's a lot smarter than because like instead of just jumping on a train and doing like the comedy or dancing or like the typical stuff, build your brand slowly, and then once if it doesn't reach the way you want to reach, then change it up differently, right? Like bring in more TikTok style, like pointing and then more, like we were talking in the car, like just tips and like just like the stuff that everybody would just eat up and like consume as content.
Yeah.
And then see how it goes.
Yeah. And like another thing too, like you said, like with the trends. So I'll jump on trends, but I'll make it contextual to what I want to talk about. Like again, so where I mix into comedy is like, I just joke about the fact that I've never gone viral. It's like there was a trend on TikTok where it's like something bad happens and it's someone that walks into the room, they slam a door and then the same song, like sad song plays every time.
I saw that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did like when I don't go viral on TikTok again, I slam my door. It's like, I'll make it like relevant, contextual to like, cause that's a social media topic, a little bit loose and not quite as niche as I'd like it to be. But like I try to jump on these trends and make it like relevant to what I want to talk about.
Yeah. That's fair. How long do you think it's going to take for TikTok to be like profitable?
I honestly don't know. Is it profit? It's not profitable right now. Like I haven't actually looked at what their business is like on.
Well, they're pushing ads right now, right? They're like,
but they're only pushing TikTok ads, I think.
Yeah, they're in beta. No, they have ads too.
They have ads like within the feed, and they're doing a new thing now where
that's new then.
Probably costs bank to do this, but Old Spice did it. And I was like doing some research on TikTok advertising. You can buy it so that when people log into TikTok or like when they open the TikTok app, your ad plays before they get into the app.
Yeah.
So that probably costs a lot of money to do, right? So I'm assuming like if they're not profitable now, they're well more than moving towards it.
Yeah, because like I was trying to think like, how do you route that younger demographic to where like you're making money on YouTube? You know, like I mean, if you're like a David Dobrik or whatever, you can. That's easy for you.
Okay, so you're talking about the actual creators itself.
Yeah. Talk about the creators itself.
That's already happening.
Yeah. So what's that girl? They're like. That one popular chick, she's like 15.
The dancing girl's her name Charlie or something?
Yeah, okay. So she's like number one on the platform pretty much. She does events. So she did an event, like a get together. Everybody came over, and if you wanted to do a TikTok with her, you'd pay her like a $125 or something, and then she would make a TikTok with you. Right? So she appears in your TikTok and she's getting paid to do that.
That's smart.
And the amount of people that came there, like she made bank.
Yeah. And like I saw a sponsor, like it's starting to creep up slowly. I saw a sponsored post recently. I don't know if you guys have seen the guy that does like frat house drama. It's like a series he does on his TikTok. But so he did a sponsored video. But what's cool with TikTok too is when it comes to advertising with creators doing like influencer marketing, you can't advertise on TikTok organically by just being like, yo, buy this product. Because that doesn't work. Because like back to the algorithm, that's content no one's going to engage with. So no one's going to see it. Whereas if you make a sponsored content that like is relevant to your brand and your content, then it's going to get engagement and it's going to, as a result, get more views because they're going to promote it through the algorithm. So you can't just straight up sell on TikTok because no one's going to care. So no one's going to engage. So TikTok is going to show that to people. But like, so this guy got sponsored by Manscaping. And so he did a whole video about like one of his frat bros kept calling it his nut trimmer. And like, that was not cool. And he did a whole video about it, but it was like right on brand with his frat house drama. So when people are going to start to get sponsored on TikTok, they're going to have to find ways to weave that product into their content already. So it's going to fit more organically as an ad. And as a result, it's going to get more engagement. So it's going to get more seen. So I think it's only going to make influencer marketing better because it's going to force brands to kind of step back and allow those creators to weave their product into their content. So it gets more exposure.
And it's more, I like it better because it's more raw content. It's not like TV commercial style, which is like super like broad and you're like, okay, sure. Right. It's like, it's legit like down to earth. Like you actually, there's a story to it and you understand it and you're like, you actually can connect to it. Just like when Old Spice, I don't know when it was back in the days with Terry Crew, it was like,
that was like
years ago.
Yeah.
That was the best campaign I've ever seen. I always go back to that campaign. It was insane. It was just little stupid clips of him doing stupid stuff. Or like his muscles flexing with like the music's going around. And so it was just stupid shit like that. And I'd engaged so much like clientele. That's what brought back Old Spice because it was dying like crazy.
Yeah, that's true.
How about TikTok?
We were talking about TikTok.
Now what do we want to talk about?
What were we just talking about though? This is all staying in here. I don't care. Okay, whatever. We're just gonna roll into this. How much research do you normally do for every episode? There we go. We bring it back to where we were.
Research.
All right.
I spend a lot of time researching, but that's like more than anybody else. I know that as a podcast, but that's allowed me to separate myself as an interviewer.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
Like my podcast, at the time of recording this, is Reezy Resells. So he's like a flipper. He'll buy like used books and sell them. He's made like millions of dollars doing this. And he interviewed Gary Vee the same day I dropped my podcast, which was crazy. But he posted that it was the best interview he's ever done. And he like even DM'd me after. He's like, yo, dude, seriously, this was the best interview I've ever done. And like his assistant, after I finished recording, emailed me and she's like, yo, he's like been talking about you for a little while, but how good that interview was. And I'm like, yo, that's insane.
That's good.
That's crazy.
Shit.
And it's just because I spend the time to do the research. And like I get comments on two things in my podcast. I get comments on my voice all the time, and I get comments on my research all the time. And it's like I've been compared to Nardwar. I don't know if you guys know who that is.
Yeah. I've watched him a little bit.
Yeah. So like it was Justin Odisho, who's like a YouTuber, and I asked him about these drawings he did when he was a little kid that he thought reminded him of Fortnite. He's like, how the fuck did you figure that out? Or like, and my favorite moment is when like I'll ask someone something and they'll start talking about it and be like, wait, how did you know that? And it's like, so I spend a lot of time in research to try and get those moments, but I'm trying to find ways to expedite my research process because it does take a long time. Like I'll spend 2, 3, 4 hours doing research, which is a lot. But so what I've started doing now is I focus on the story, because my podcast is about the stories behind people on social media. So like everyone has a grid or whatever. They try and be perfect on social. Let's try and get behind that and really talk about you and like your strategies to social and everything. And so I used to do all my research, but now instead of like focusing on the social side, what I did is I went back at a bunch of all my old, like I have called prep notes of everything. And I copy and paste all the stuff that can be related to pretty much every person. Like talking about your YouTube process, like what goes into a thumbnail, what goes into a title, all that. All that's going to be pretty standard across every person. So I have like a master doc that's like 15 pages long now of like all these questions that could relate to anybody. So now I just focus on the story, try and do that in an hour and a half. And then I just can like plug and play all the other questions I've written down in the past. So I can kind of speed it up a little bit. So I've just started doing that now, and it cut down quite a bit of time on my most recent podcast. But yeah, I spend a ton of time doing research because like I've talked to a fellow podcaster that you mentioned in the intro, Deepak. We've talked about it in the past. And so like he doesn't do much research at all.
Yeah, his is more of a conversation.
Yeah, which is totally fine. Because like that's how his personality works. Like with my personality when it comes to an interview, I don't think I would thrive if I didn't have my prep notes. Like I wouldn't be able to do an interview as well as I do if I was just kind of doing it off the cuff and like just doing it free. Whereas he's good at that. Like that's where that, like I've talked to him about that. I'm like, yo, that's what you're good at though. So like don't try and do the research, because then like it'll probably mess you up and you're trying to like look at your notes and like do the interview. Like just do what you're doing, because that's where you're most comfortable and that's what you're better at. And with me, I'm better at having my prep, doing all that, like, and having like my podcast is pretty structured. Like sometimes I'll ask questions and I know what your answer is going to be, because that's my next question. Like I get that like into it with structuring my podcast. So yeah, all that to say that it does take me a long time, but and like sometimes I'm like literally sitting there like it's like hour number 3 and I'm like, what am I doing? Like I don't want to do this anymore. But it's like at the end of the day, when I have people like Reezy being like, yo, this is the best interview I've ever done, like it's like, okay, like it sucks a little bit, but it's worth it.
Yeah, like in the long run it's gonna be
really it sets me apart. So
yeah.
So it's a full like deep dive on Facebook and all that, I'm guessing.
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. The best one, this is like my number one tip for my podcast research, is I go back and I try and find like old interviews they've done, whether it be a podcast or like a YouTube video or an article. And I'll like pull something from there that they'll gloss over it at the time. And like they did this interview in like 2011. So I'll like pull this thing they just barely touched on in 2011 and I'll get them to expand on it. And that's kind of the moments where they'll be like, whoa, how'd you like find that? Or like I'll go back deep in their Instagram and like they posted like a random photo in 2013 that they don't remember. And I asked them about this photo and they're like, yo, how did you know I did that? Like just these little things like that. And so yeah, I do a full deep dive, like page 10 of Google sometimes, like deep into YouTube. I'll like flip their YouTube. So I watch their old videos, and like with YouTubers too, I'll go back to some of their old videos and I'll like watch an old video from like 2013, and they have so many videos, like a couple hundred videos at this point, but like they don't remember what they said every single one. So I like write one thing down that they said in the YouTube video in 2013 that they don't remember saying, and then I'll get them to talk about that. And that's what, like, how did you know that? It's like, I just got lucky. I clicked on this one video, but yeah, I do a full deep dive on like all their socials, mainly Instagram. Like Twitter and Facebook is hard to do a deep dive. Like Instagram, it's nice because it's the grid. You can just scroll through everything quickly, whereas Facebook, it takes a long time. And Twitter, like I've interviewed people like thousands of tweets. It's like, I'm not scrolling through all of your tweets. Like I don't care that much to go through everything, but like Instagram and YouTube are the big ones. And then I'll go through Google and read like every article I can that's ever been written about this person, and like podcasts I'll try and listen to as well. And yeah.
Damn. Yeah. See, we spend like maybe half an hour to an hour on her research.
Yeah.
But then again, like us, it's different because we're kind of trying to talk about a topic as well as the guest a bit, where you, it's more like guest based, you know, about the guest type of thing.
It's very guest based. And I try and tell that story, right? Like all of my podcasts, like someone pointed out to me, like they're all chronological. And that's what that's why I structure. Like we will start at the beginning and we will work our way through your story kind of from start to finish. We might bounce around a little bit because like that's something I need to work on. And like I got good at it in New York and I kind of lost it, is like if they bring something up, okay, we're just going to jump to that and then we'll come back. Like I need to get better at doing that. But for the most part, it's like we start and like we work our way through their whole story.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. See, that's my thing. I keep saying, like, yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Fuck, man. I hate, and then I have to edit this shit out because I keep saying, yeah, fuck.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah, you get used to it when you do actual interviews and do video work. Like what I usually do. So then you have to shut up, right? Like any pen tapping you can't do because you need clean audio. So you're just there like, you want to talk back, but you're like, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I've tried to start doing. See, now we're reverting back, but whatever. I started doing just nod. Like whenever I want to say yeah, just.
Yeah, no, I nod aggressively in all of my podcasts. I like stare at my guests and I just like nod the entire time they're talking. They probably think I'm crazy a little bit, but like I'm like, look, I'm just trying not to talk right now. Like I just let you kind of like, I let people talk like their full thought process. I try to like because people have like talked to me, like I've talked to Hayden about how Gary Vee will like cut his guest off because he knows where they're going. But like I'm not very good. I don't like to do that. And like I just kind of let them like work through the thoughts that they have going on in their head. So sometimes they run on a little long, but at the end of the day, I just sit there, shut up and nod.
No, I feel you on that. I started going through and just cutting out all my yeahs. So we'll just cut to your camera and it's literally there's no audio from any of us.
See that with my podcast, like with my mics, like it picks up everyone's audio. So I'm working on getting a better setup, like I talked to you guys about before. But so like I can't really cut out my yeahs. Like sometimes I'll like cut my mic and just so you can kind of hear me in the background saying yeah every once in a while. But at the end of the day, like it's not the end of the world. Like I just try, like I said, good enough, not perfect.
Yeah, 100%. So what made you kind of want to start a podcast? I guess we should have started off with that, but
see, like people ask that question all the time, and it's like I kind of just listen to a lot of podcasts, and I've always tried to do something that's like quote unquote building my brand. Like I didn't necessarily understand that's what I was doing at the time, but like when I was 18, I started a vlog channel on YouTube that died. When I was 19, I started a sports show on YouTube. So kind of like Philip DeFranco, like my inspiration was like if Philip DeFranco talked about sports all the time, this is what I want it to be. So I would do like a video every week talking about the most recent news in sports. And I got kind of bored with that and I stopped that one. And that was the one before the podcast was the one I spent the most time on. I think I did like 20 videos, something like that. And then I started another vlog channel after that, which is kind of like my current YouTube right now. That's just kind of sitting there and like, again, did some vlogs, didn't stick with that. And then I just started listening to a lot of podcasts and I was like, yeah, I should start a podcast. I think it'd be cool. And the original like idea for the podcast was none of my YouTube videos are growing. Also because like I didn't fully have a good understanding of social media at that time, but my YouTube's not growing, like my Instagram's not growing. Like I just wish I could talk to these people about that. I was like, oh, I could do the podcast. And like I knew I want to start the podcast. Like, why don't I make it about social media and talk to people about how they grew on social media? Like that's perfect. And then I'm basically like, they're teaching me how to do it. They'll probably shout at the podcast. The podcast will grow super quick. Like this is genius. Like why don't I do this? And so that was kind of like the genesis behind the podcast. And like, there's a little bit naive for me to think that like I did, again, I was still super like new into my social media journey. Like I feel like the last like 12 to 18 months, I've really started to kind of get into it. But at the time I'd be like, yo, this person has 14,000 followers. They mentioned my podcast. Like I'm going to get like probably like 3,000 downloads. I get 4 and I'm like, what do you mean? Like, so that was like, but so I kind of didn't fully understand at that time, but originally that was the idea was I want to start a podcast. And then eventually I was just like, yo, why don't I just interview people about, because at first I was like, I'm just going to interview young people doing cool things. That's not like really enough. And then I was like, social media, like that's what I work in. That's what I'm interested in. Like, why don't I do that? And then it kind of just went from there and that's pretty much it. And I've changed it. It's not necessarily about how people grew on social media because even from episode 1 with Hayden, a thing that a lot of people were commenting on was the story, right? Like Hayden would always bring up like, yo, people like keep mentioning these things like, oh, yo, I didn't know you rapped for Logic. I didn't know you were that good at soccer growing up. And like, he kept mentioning like people keep bringing up the story parts to me. Like that's like something you should take note of. I'm like, for sure. And then people like, as I kind of went on, like the story kept being more of a bigger thing. So I pivoted to the stories behind the people on social media instead of teaching you how to grow on social media by talking to people that have actually done it. So my interview hasn't really changed. Like my style of interview hasn't changed. We talk about the same things we would have, but I've pivoted a little bit. So when we talk about their story for the first half, 2/3 of the interview, it makes sense now with the podcast.
Yeah, that's smart. Yeah, one thing I love is that you can always like kind of switch things up on podcasts, you know, not like stick with your niche, but like that's one thing that's good about us is like photography. You can go videography. You can go, we're in podcasts. We can talk about podcasts, talk about audio, talk about a freaking painter if we want to. Like it's born to create, talk about creators, you know, that's one thing I love about creating podcasts.
And that's the thing too, like in terms of like switching it up. Like I feel like some people, especially like smaller creators, like people like us, they get like so worried about switching it up Because like, what are like people gonna think about like if I switch this up? Like, what do you mean? What are people gonna? What people? Like, if I switch up my podcast, maybe one person might notice. You know what I mean? Like, I'm still so small where it doesn't matter. And like, I might be bigger than when I started, but I'm like nowhere near big in any way, shape, or form, right? So if I switch up and those people don't like it, well, it's not the end of the world, because it's not like you're losing 20,000 followers. I might lose like 5, like whatever, right? So like, especially when you're just starting, like change and pivot as much as you can until you find whatever it is that works for both you and your audience.
No, exactly. It's interesting how I talked about this with Deepak earlier, but like even implementing like random segments. Like I was talking to him about it. He's like, yeah, like I kind of want to switch things up or do it. I'm like, dude, like,
Just do it.
you can do whatever you want. If a segment doesn't work, boom, switch to a new segment. Do this, like, which is what we kind of need to get back and try and do. But
or else it gets boring, man. Like,
yeah,
it's always the same thing. Like huge story, right? So it's on the actual story, so it's good. But like sometimes for us, if it's just the same topic, it's like it gets super boring. So you have to change it up, just because people don't like the same thing over and over and over. A lot of people, they like different stuff all the time. So it's nice just bringing just different aspects.
Like how many
Just
wedding
change it up.
videographers do you have to interview before someone understands wedding videography? You know,
Like,
And that's it too, with part of like switching up like the stories behind the people on social media, because like the social media tips are going to be like pretty similar with everybody.
Yeah.
We're still going to talk about, because that's what the podcast originated. That's my niche, is social. We're obviously going to talk about it, but the stories are going to be different every time. So the social tips are going to be the same. Be consistent, like look at your analytics, do all that stuff. But the stories are always going to be different. So I can keep it fresh with the stories. Like I don't have a lot of segments on mine. I have one where it's like, I called it rapid fire, but then no one answered the questions fast. So I just called it the Q&A. But like every time I say like, yeah, we're just going to do a quick Q&A, I sound like a fucking idiot. The whole time I've been asking them questions. Why is this one different? But like I called the Q&A and I asked like 5 questions, the same ones that I ask everybody. And that's like my only segment to kind of end it, because that's just kind of like a standard podcasting, is asking those like deep questions at the end. But like, so I don't have a segments to keep things fresh. So that's why I rely heavy on the stories, because that's what keeps it fresh from episode to episode.
yeah, that's fair. Like our only segment is technically lightning round as of right now.
yeah.
But I mean, I want to bring in more stuff. Like we tried to start like facts with Frank. So just like random photography facts, or like, you know, stuff that's going on in the industry. And like, that's like kind of why I wanted to bring in like us talking at the beginning, because it shows who we are.
Yeah.
You know, we talk about whatever the hell we want. It's our podcast.
Dumb conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally like, and that's like the thing that I struggle with too, is like, how do I make it, like, how do I show off who I am? Because like, I don't talk a lot in my podcast, right? Like, I literally, like, there's one interview I did, I counted, because when I cut it on Premiere, I can kind of see when I ask my questions. And it's like, I counted, like, this was like an hour and 20-minute podcast. I asked 17 questions. I spoke 17 times from the beginning of this podcast to the end. Like, no one knows who I am. And that's something I'm very cognizant of. It's like, I don't want to be the host of my social life. I want to be Jacob Kelly, and my social life is something that, and I am the host of my social life. That's something that I do, right? Like, I want it to be a part of my brand, not my whole brand. So it's like, that's something I'm trying to figure out, like how I kind of get around that, because I'm becoming the podcast guy. And I don't want to just be the podcast guy.
Try and do episodes on your own.
I do.
Okay.
So that's actually kind of where I was going, was I also started doing the takeaways episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Which is, so like, I'll interview someone, and then every Thursday, my episodes drop on Monday, the interview. Every Thursday I do an episode called Takeaways, where I write down like 3 to 7 points that I like really liked from that podcast, and I'll talk about them and like why it was important and why it stood out to me, and kind of like go deeper on that point than my guest might have. And I did that one because I connected with a podcaster on LinkedIn. His name's Mark Metry. He hosts Humans 2.0. It's like it's a top 100 podcast. And he's just like, yeah, post more. And this is when I was doing an episode. I just gone from an episode every 2 weeks to 1 episode a week. And he's like, yeah, post more. And I'm like, dude, how? I'm editing. Like, I'd cut down my editing. I was like, this takes me 12 hours to do. Like, I'm doing 12 hours a week. Like, what do you mean do more? But he didn't say do more interviews. He just said do more episodes. And that's like, I had that click where I was like, oh, like, why don't I just do a solo episode? Like, literally, I just roll up. It takes me 20 minutes. I schedule it. I post it. I don't do any editing. Like, I'll do like one thing to make the audio sound a little bit better. And like, whatever, like, it gets about half as many downloads as the regular episode does. But then that's like, what, an extra third of, or like an extra however many downloads, right? Because I did that. So, yeah. So that's kind of how I showcase my personalities through these, like, there's like bonus episodes every Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's smart. Like, that's why we try and do like random us episodes, which I haven't really looked at the analytics, but I don't think they do as well as like the ones with guests and stuff like that. But it still like showcases who we are. as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not too bad.
So because I know you're doing a self-branding, you're trying to start your own like social media company
Mm-hmm.
in a way. So are you trying to get away from kind of more podcast stuff? Like what are you trying to build as a brand for yourself?
I think podcasting will be a part of that brand because I think like it can be like encompassing with the whole social strategy, right? I think that like I don't want to remove podcasting. Like podcasting will always be a part of that. But when it comes to like social, I want it to be like overall on social, like content is super important.
Yeah.
And like Gary Vee talked about how important branding is, right? Like it's branding over and I believe that same too is like branding over sales. So it's like producing content can benefit you on social. Like it can be a part of that strategy. So I'm not trying to remove podcasting from my brand. I just don't want it to become my whole brand.
Yeah. Because I know what's smart is like, because I know not everybody's going to blow up from a podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're super famous, then yeah, the whole podcast is just like, that's what's going good for you. But for smaller businesses like social media, like what you're doing is somewhat integrated right now, is that your podcast is about social media.
Mm-hmm.
But what can be cool is if you're talking like small points. So you have your own business doing social media, but then you can link people to your podcast episode that will explain that one point that you're talking to them about. So it's more of a business move instead of content.
Yeah.
Like that's a really smart move to do for a podcast for like stuff like that.
Yeah.
Nice. I gotta edit that note.
Yeah.
Great. Why did you start daily vlogging on Instagram?
Oh man.
And I noticed you're the only person that we know, like he mentioned this, that has like every single day on your highlight.
Yeah.
Why do you do that?
So, because like, so I started like, this is like, I've always wanted to vlog. Like I started the vlog channel when I was 18. I started another one when I was 20. And then I started doing it last year. I started vlogging on my Instagram story. And at that point I was saving them all and then like uploading them to IGTV. So if you go to my IGTV, there's like 130 vlogs, but like sometimes they're like a day. There's like one snap. And with IGTV, I never post photos because I'm like, that doesn't work on IGTV, right? Like, and I was like, it's so weird that like with IGTV, like you can't consume that story the same way you would like when you're watching a story. Like the same like it's not the same user experience. But I was like, I wish there was a way I could just like save all of them as like stories. And I was like, oh fuck, highlights. Like, why don't I do that? And this is when I'd stopped doing the daily vlogs on my Instagram story for a while, but I was like, I need to be posting on my stories because I don't post in the feed a lot right now because I just don't have the content. But stories I can post every day. And it's a way that I can do the vlog without a full YouTube thing. Because I also actually I did like weekly vlogs on my Instagram this spring. Like when I was traveling with the hockey team with the 67s during the playoffs, I like had all these clips on my phone and I'd like throw in some of like me vlogging for a little bit of context. And then I did that for a little bit, then I stopped. And then I did another video where I announced I was going to start daily vlogging and challenged myself to daily vlogging for a week. And then I daily vlogged for a day and stopped. So my announcing of this challenge was the only one I did. And then I was like, I kind of want to do this, but it's just so much work. And then I was like, I should just go back to the stories. And that's when I was like, I wish there was a way I could just save them all so people could consume like a story. And I was like, oh, highlights. And I just Googled, it's like, is there a limit on how many highlights you can have? And there isn't. So I was like, you know what? Like, cool. Like I know that for like stories, it's like 100 or whatever, I think, for the amount of stories you can post.
Yeah,
Hayden hit that a couple times.
With his like lunches, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I was just like, why don't I do that? Like it's a way where I can just like, I can save all my stories that they don't just live there for one day, they live there for forever. And yeah, I mean, like I don't think anyone's gonna go back and watch the first one, but this is something I'm experimenting with. And some days I have bad days where like some days I don't even upload a story and I'm like, well, now my daily vlog sucks. It's like November 22nd, November 24th, and I'm like, what happened? Like, but whatever. And like some days I post 2 stories. I'm like, this is lame. So it's like I try, like by doing that too, it keeps me accountable because like people can go back and look at this and there's not much of a story with like an actual story with when you only post 2 stories. So it's like that tries to keep me accountable to post more. It doesn't really work all the time, but it was literally just like, I want a daily vlog. I want people to be able to go back and watch my daily vlogs. Doing it on Instagram stories is probably gonna be the easiest execution of that. And then I can just keep them on my highlights.
Yeah, no, that's really smart. Have you noticed any like growth from it?
I don't know. Like I don't notice my growth, but like I realized like when I did that Spin Influencer event, I think I had 1,200 followers and I'm sitting like 1,330, but I don't post too often. So like people keep trickling in. I think some of it comes through story a little bit. I'll get a lot of random views on my story though, of like bigger accounts. And I'm like, yo, who are you? Or like a verified account will view my story. I'm like, how did you watch? Like, why are you watching this story? I didn't hashtag, I didn't put a location. Like, how'd you find this? But so, I mean, like my following's gone up. I get like probably like maybe 100 profile views a week. And like that's got to be through my story because I don't really post anywhere else. It might be like a podcast thing where a guest tags my actual account instead of the podcast, but still a little bit of growth, but not too much.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned like the random people noticing it because I had like Brendan North, who's Logan Paul's. He was Logan Paul's videographer like before Japan type of thing.
Okay.
And like he saw my story one day. I'm like, how the hell did he see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of random people seeing stories and shit, like random follows and then unfollows and.
I don't like the follow thing, man.
It doesn't work.
That's old school, man.
Like,
that's 2010.
It worked at the time, but like it doesn't work now.
No, not at all.
And you don't get any engagement off of it
No.
anyways. Like,
And like I got someone that DM my podcast and they're like, yo, like on the Instagram, they're like, yo, sub for sub. And I was like, no, like, sorry. And then I tweeted, I was like, I just got asked to do sub for sub on YouTube. Like, what year is it, guys? It's not how you build like an effective, like that's not how you build community on social media. And I had someone quote tweet it like 5 minutes later and they were like, this could work for you. Like just because it wouldn't work for you doesn't mean it's not going to work for everyone else. Like this is a way to build community, I click on his account. He's got like 14,000 followers following like 8,000 or 9,000 people. I'm like, okay, so you did this. That's why you're like upset that I made this tweet. And then like, just to prove my point, he got one, like I got 6, he has 14,000 followers. I have 600. So it's like, my community's more engaged just like, because I don't do followers. Like,
yeah,
it also wasn't in his niche. So that could be why too, but like, it's just, sub for sub, follow for follow. It's like, follow unfollow, like that whole thing, like it's just not how you build an engaged community.
No, like cool, you got the numbers. Nobody really gives a shit anymore about the numbers that much.
No,
depends, but
like even what actually going back to the conversation I had earlier with Deepak, but
1,000 subs, right?
Yeah. All you need to like sustain yourself is have 1,000 subs or like 1,000
true fans.
It's
an essay by Kevin Kelly.
Yeah, he sent it to me. I haven't read it yet. But.
Yeah. So basically, he says like you could have 100,000 followers, but as long as 1,000 of them are consistently purchasing whatever you're putting out, or like if you have like a big item and they all buy it, like you can sustain yourself as a creator with $1,000. There are 1,000 true fans. So like for example, say you do like a preset pack as a photographer twice a year, you charge $30. You have 1,000 true fans that buy that every single time. That's $60,000 a year off those 1,000 people. So it's kind of like the Prince, like a quick overview of what that concept is like, as long as you can build an actual connection with 1,000 people where they will actually like buy from you and like support you, then yeah, it's totally feasible.
Yeah. No, it's just hard to find those 1,000.
Yeah. Oh, it totally is.
You
like,
just got to keep pushing, bro. Engage with the stories.
Yeah.
Engage on stories, man.
What's the next step for Jacob Kelly or My Social Life?
I don't know necessarily. I think the YouTube would be a good one. I think I need to continue creating more content about me. But the podcast is just to keep going. Like, I don't know when, like Frank and I were talking on the way here, like, I don't know when I'm going to take a break. Like I don't have season 2 or anything. Like I did every 2 weeks for like 5 or 6 episodes. I missed a week. So I went 3 weeks between an episode. And then I was like, maybe I'll try going weekly. And then I haven't missed since. It's been like over a year now that I put a podcast out every single day. So it's like, I don't know necessarily what's next for the podcast, because it's like I'm just going to kind of keep going and I don't know to what end, right? So I kind of got to do some self-reflection to figure that out. But yeah,
like reamp it or search them in video or like video of yourself as well or something,
Yeah, actually, I think now that you say that, I do want to rebrand it a little bit, not in terms of like the name or anything, but like just the look, right? Because like my cover art is Polaroid photo and like the Rustico font, which unfortunately Unfold started using. I don't Unfold the story app.
No,
it's like an Instagram story app. Like everyone uses it. Like it's to make your stories look like clean, and it's like you can do like collages and whatever in your story. Either way, it's a popular story app, and they use the same font as my podcast. And like I was like, so it's like my font's not great. You can't look at my podcast cover and be like, okay, this is about social media. Like it doesn't make sense. So I want to kind of change it to being like, so maybe like I incorporate the social logos or something, and I might put myself on the cover so people like know that like I'm the host of it or whatever. Like I need to figure out what that looks like. But I think that actually, now that you say that, it's probably the next big step for the podcast is to kind of rebrand it a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's kind of what I'm thinking we should do. But
we did like 5 times.
Yeah, well, rebrand it again. Fuck it. Or do something different. Like just figure out what works, Like that's why I want to take like maybe a 2-week break at the beginning of January.
Yeah.
And then just try and bang out as many episodes as we can, as well as like figure out something, like implement segments or something
Mhm.
that just hopefully works.
Yeah.
Or keep figuring out what works.
Yeah, fair enough.
I have a question that's totally off topic, but I'm really curious. How did you get your Henry's camera strap?
That's a funny question. Truthful answer, I don't know.
Oh, wow.
So I actually don't own a camera. It's my girlfriend's camera. She did photography for a while, kind of got out of it. She doesn't use her camera at all. And once I decided to start the podcast, I was like, yo, can I just use the camera? She was like, yeah, for sure. And for all intents and purposes, it's like my camera now. Like she never uses it. She might start using it again, actually. So she started doing this thing. It's like embroidery. So it's like a wooden hoop and there's like fabric over it. And she can do these pretty like intricate designs. Like she's only been doing it for a little while, but like she did one like of our cat because we have a cat and it looks like the cat. And I'm like, yo, how the hell did you do that? Like that's crazy. Like so she started like doing it as a business now and she's selling them for Christmas. So she just had like one lady ordered like I think like 8 from her. So it's just like so she started making money off of it. So she's gonna try and like do that. So she's gonna start creating content just based off of like what she's doing to try and like gain a following and some stuff so like she could then sell these online. Like she has an Etsy shop and like so she's probably gonna start using it again, but for like all intents and purposes, like I've been using the camera exclusively for like a year and a half now. So the Henry camera strap is hers. I have no idea where she got it, when she got it, but yeah. Why do you ask?
They're hard to find.
They're hella rare, and supposedly I know a decent amount of them like go for some good money.
Interesting.
Because whenever we were at downtown,
we're in Toronto.
Yeah, downtown camera store in Toronto. They had a bunch of like old camera straps hanging. And I asked him like, "Are these for sale?" He's like, "No, they're not for sale. Like some of them are like really rare and kind of expensive." And there was a Henry's one up there.
That's crazy.
So I've always been curious about it.
Yeah, no, my girlfriend. I don't know where she got it. I think she got the camera like. I think she bought the camera at Henry, so I think she just got it when she bought the camera.
Yeah, because I know they ran them for like a limited amount of time.
Yeah, she probably bought it in that window.
Nice.
Shit. Fuck. I need one. I want one.
Do you want me to run it back on that story with my little brother?
Yes.
Yeah,
You continue.
so-
I'm gonna have a pen.
Go for it. So yeah, your brother has a podcast.
Yeah.
He's starting one.
Yeah, so he has his own podcast. It's called Shots and Thoughts, and like, yeah,
with dots.
no, Shots and Thoughts is what it's called, and not like THOTS, like
Okay.
not like THOUGHTS, like a thought in your head.
Like thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of a cool concept. I think his execution could be a little bit better. I was his second episode, I think. And so like which is tough because like his first episode was like he used the studio at Algonquin because his buddy's like an artist and he works at Algonquin or he's like going to school at Algonquin. So like his buddy knows all about audio. So they did this like legit podcast in Algonquin. And then he comes to my house, he's like, yeah, can we use your mics? Because I don't have any. And I'm like, I guess so, because we're shooting a podcast tonight or whatever. So it's like I set everything up and we're like shooting the podcast and like my brother and I are very different people. So like he didn't prepare at all, but he's like he probably should have because he kept just being like, so, and he like stare at me for a while and like raise his eyebrows and I'd be like, yeah, you might need to prepare a little bit more kind of going forward. And like the whole premise behind his podcast is like you do like the first little bit and then you do like 2 truths and a lie. And if you get the truth or 2 truths and a lie, so if you guess which one's the lie, the person that said it has to take a shot. But if you get it wrong, you have to take a shot. So
like an actual shot.
Like an actual shot.
Okay.
So like it's a cool concept. It's like, you know, if you do that, they do like 3 or 4 rounds. So like you take a couple shots, you're probably feeling pretty good. Your conversation might get kind of interesting for like the second half. But like the first one he recorded at Algonquin, so they can't drink. The second one, I'm like, you're not sleeping at my house. I don't want to drink tonight. I'm not drinking. He's like, okay, we'll still record it anyway. So we did 2 truths and a lie just for fun. And then the third one, I think he's only done like 3 episodes. Like it's kind of a cool concept, but like it was just, he's just very raw and uncut with it and like just stresses me out when it comes to like, cause I'm like, I try so hard on my podcast and he's just like, yeah, whatever. Like just making like dumb jokes. My dog's like running in the shot and he's like, wow, whatever. Like it's all good. And like, and then like, yeah, I just went at him for like 40 minutes about his life. He's like, I didn't know that you were going to lecture me for the whole thing. Like, this was cool. And I was like, sorry, man. Like, you just got me heated. And because yeah, we were just talking about like school and like post-secondary and like all this stuff. And like, yeah. And I just love my brother. I'm like, I want you to do well. But we just went at it for a little while. And it was good though. Like, I thought it was a good podcast. And like, I kind of gave props to him, like when he posted it. Cause I listened to it. I was like, you didn't remove anything. Like, props to him for putting the whole thing out because I did kind of go at him a little hard because he's my little brother and of course I'm gonna go hard on him. But yeah, it was just funny that he was just like, it's just some really weird and random moments and like there's a part though where like he kind of like finds a good flow with you. He's talking about like YouTube and stuff and like I'm listening to him like, okay, this is like my thing. Like keep going with this, and then he just like pivots it to something completely random. I'm like, dude, like it's just funny. I don't know how we got to this part of the talking about my brother's podcast, but I think I owe him because like apparently he plugs my podcast like everybody he knows, so I should probably plug his podcast. That's Shots and Thoughts.
That's pretty sweet. Yeah, anyone who's lost, we were talking about that off camera, so we just figured we'd start rolling and talk about it on camera.
Great subject, man.
Yeah,
that's insane.
Yeah,
like nice and raw. Like I like it like that, like because sometimes you have to be professional, but like shit like that's just funny. So like there's also so Impulsive is run by Logan Paul.
Yeah.
And then there's The Night Shift, which is like,
oh my God, I love that.
I don't know if you watched it.
I've never watched. I think you told me to watch it though.
I told Deepak to watch it as well, man. Like it's just so many random segments and literally just shows like content and like who you are is king.
Mm-hmm.
He's got some German videographer who fucks up half the time. His background is the Impulsive set with Night Shift written on napkins. Like it's just the best one is the 5 days leading up to the fight.
Okay.
Because he got kicked out of the Maverick house.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like going around, like he's at like the model house with like Katie Bell, like Julia Rose and all of them. And then the next day he's like with Banks and he's with like Emily Willis and then Riley Reid one day. And like funniest comment is like, how many times did Mike get laid while on this week? That's the funniest one I saw. But yeah, it just goes to show like content and like who you are is king and doesn't matter what fancy shit you have type of thing.
Yeah, I think the whole YouTube LA scene is interesting too. Like that was another cool thing when talking to Dustin about it, and like the fact that he was like, because I send everyone the podcast before, I'm like, yeah, I'll make sure like go through it because I'm so far advanced now, right? So it's like I don't have to panic when it's a Sunday night and they haven't given it back to me, and I'm like, yo, like, is there anything you want removed? But I sent it to Dustin, like he was like cool with all of it being in there, and him talking about how like LA is very much like everyone's got a guard up, right? Like, what do you want from me? So it's just like it's cool that he's able to kind of bounce around and work with all those people when it's like. For most people, like if they don't know who you are, they're not cool. They're not gonna fuck with you. You know what I mean? So it's just like interesting. Like I often think like, what would I do? Like if I would ever like be in that situation when I moved to LA, would I stay in Ottawa? Like what would the move be? It's like I don't know if I'd want to move to LA. You know what I mean? Like I think Cali's cool, but like again, like it's just everyone's there with their own agenda, and then like, would you want that? You know what I mean?
It's all work in a way.
Yeah, and it's like you don't hang out with people. You collab with people. You don't hang out. So it's like, is that even fun anymore? Like, do you like, are they actually your friends or are they like your quote unquote business partners because you're just collabing, right? So it's just interesting kind of like dynamic in LA when it comes to YouTube.
Yeah. Like if I went there, I'd have to do something like Logan does. Like Logan, who has like Mac, who's been with him since forever.
Mm-hmm.
Big Mike, they collab. He's on the podcast and shit, but like they're good friends. You know, they had Evan forever, Spencer and Andre are new, but like it's just like, you have that whole group of friends. It's such a dynamic group where like you have those guys around and you're like, no, you shouldn't fucking do this. It's stupid.
Mm-hmm.
Like Mike, who everyone thinks he's a yes man, but he's really not.
Yeah. Don't even get me started on Mike not convincing Logan not to go on TikTok right now, though. Drives me insane.
Oh, Logan got on it. I think he is.
Is he now?
Yeah.
Well, there goes an idea for a YouTube video. I was gonna do a rant about why he should be on YouTube, or on TikTok.
Yeah,
he own it. Holy.
Well, he already has 3.7 million followers from Musical.ly that just came over, like that when Musical.ly got acquired. Like they just migrated over to TikTok. So, like he already has a platform. He's mastered short form comedy, like he said, or like the skit comedy. Like he could crush it on TikTok. So it makes zero sense for him not to be on it.
Well, they want to move on to like bigger things, like more production, like mini docs and like stuff like they did like the Flat Earth. Which makes sense. I mean, like,
you
fuck.
can still create TikTok.
I'd be doing that shit too.
Yeah, well, like, and obviously, like, they want to do that too. Like, when you look at someone like Shane Dawson, who's made that, like, it's like the new wave, right? And like, what's cool with Shane Dawson is he basically did like a 6-7 part series on marketing on like advertising his product, and it like sold out super quickly, right? So it's like it's a powerful.
Oh, the makeup. Thing?
Yeah, the makeup palette, right?
That
like,
shit was.
I didn't actually watch it. I watched the Jake Paul one that he did, but I didn't watch the makeup one. But it was basically like just a 6-7 part. Had like 7-hour advertisement.
That was the one with Jeffree Star, right? Yeah, I know. Like Jeffree was telling me that, like, be prepared. Like you're gonna be amazed with how much money we're about to fucking make off this shit.
Yeah, like it's crazy. But like, but with that in mind, like the long form content is like, it's clearly like what people want on YouTube. And when it comes to YouTube, like the two most important things that you should be tracking are click-through rate and watch time. So if you can do a long form content piece that's gonna make people watch for like an hour, YouTube's gonna love it. YouTube's gonna show up, more people are gonna watch. Like it's only gonna benefit you, right? Like you can get people to click on it and you can get them to watch it. That's only gonna help you. So just if you can keep making longer and longer content that's gonna make people stick around and watch it, YouTube's only going to like you more because you're just keeping them on the platform longer. So
Yeah, no, exactly. Like that's one thing I noticed that we struggle with is like, since these episodes are generally so long, the average view duration is like 10 minutes.
That's way more than what I get.
Really?
Oh yeah, my YouTube's trash. Like I get nothing on YouTube, and like I've switched up my thumbnails. I've tried different things. I've had a couple episodes like pop. Like I interviewed a guy named Reese Douglas. He's from England, and he was like a child star. Like he was on a super popular like drama growing up. Like it was a TV show, and so like he still has fans from that. So I had a couple of his things pop. When I say pop, I mean like 200 views, not anything crazy. And like I had a clip with Darren Pang, like the former NHL goalie. That one did kind of well, again, almost 200 views, but for the most part, my YouTube gets like 1-2 views. So I stopped doing the YouTube clips because I was like, I hated doing it. It wasn't doing anything for me. So I'll still post the full podcast on YouTube, but like that's it for me now because like I wasn't seeing results and like it just wasn't really working for me.
Yeah, it's like it's so interesting, like looking at other podcast people's analytics, because it's hard to figure out like why the hell are, like, not necessarily that this shit matters, like analytics, but it's like why the hell are they getting so much views compared to like what you're doing when you're almost like producing similar content in a way, although it is different niches and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think a cool thing about YouTube too is how it accidentally became a podcast platform.
Yeah,
with so many big YouTubers now like switching over and doing their own podcast now, like, and posting them on YouTube because that's where they are, that's where they crush it. And so now like the biggest like some of the biggest podcasts are like consumed through YouTube, which is just like a cool thing how like that accidentally happened with YouTube. Like they weren't trying to be a podcast platform, but it happened. Yeah. And I think that it'd be like almost like an advantage for them if they could somehow lean into that, right? Like if a creator could somehow mark their video as a podcast, it'd be cool if you could like download just the audio from that and listen to it. You know what I mean? Like YouTube could lean into that podcast side of things and really, I think they could really crush it. Like if they had like YouTube podcasts or something, like I think it'd be great for them because right now they've become a bit like a podcast platform accidentally.
Yeah, it's smart, but I feel like most people go onto YouTube just to like actually be able to watch it. You
really?
know? Yeah, because like, well, for me, like Impulsive, you can listen to that on iTunes and Apple Podcasts, but I'd rather watch it.
See, but now when you watch Impulsive, are you working on stuff and you throw it up on another monitor? Do you have it play?
Sometimes not. Like for the most part, I'll actually like
straight up just watch
really,
it.
I'm wasting my time, but like
interesting.
I'll sit there and watch it for an hour.
Most of my like I don't really consume YouTube unless I'm like cooking or doing dishes at this point.
Shit, eh? Yeah. I tend to consume a lot more content than I should.
Really, eh?
But like it all depends on what it is. Like I get bored, so sometimes I'll throw on some fucking random Fortnite shit.
Okay.
And I'll just have that running in the background while I'm editing or doing whatever, you know? But like, yeah, I tend to actually watch YouTube to watch YouTube. Like
that's crazy.
I don't even listen to other podcasts for the most part.
Really, eh?
Yeah.
I say that's crazy, like taking a break and watching something for a couple hours is crazy, but it's actually not. Like it's a good thing to kind of, and like where I'll do that is like with Chell. I'll play NHL for a little bit, but like for the most part, like I'm always trying to do something. Like I'm not very good at sitting on the couch and like watching Netflix. Like my girlfriend and I will watch Netflix when we eat dinner. But like I'm like, yo, let's not watch a 42-minute show because that's too long. Like we eat food in like 13 minutes, and that like 9-minute period waiting for the show to end. By the end of it, I'm like, yeah, okay, like can I go now? Because like I just get bored. Yeah. So it's like I don't consume too much unless like I'm able to keep myself busy in another way, which is good and bad because I felt like I'm over consuming now. You know what I mean? Like we're not over consuming, but I'm like overthinking, if that makes sense. Like I'm making my breakfast, I have a YouTube show on, and then I'm doing the dishes after I have a YouTube show on. Oh, I'm like going to the bathroom on my phone. Oh, I'm walking to work, I have a podcast in. Oh, I'm working at work, I have a podcast. And like I'm always going, and I feel like that's a bad thing. Like I'm almost over indexed and like trying to learn too much. So now I've like started booking off like 30-minute windows. I literally just call it like bored time. And I will go into my bedroom. I will leave my phone out. No technology. It's me, a notebook, and a pen, and nothing else for 30 minutes. And I just I will lay on my bed and I can't leave the surface of my bed for half an hour. And I just get bored.
I remember we talked about this.
Yeah.
How is it? Are you still doing it? Like, how is that working out for you?
So I think it took me after we talked about it, it took me a couple weeks to actually do it. And then I did it and it was great.
Have you done it since though?
Yeah, I've done it one time since. This Sunday was just kind of a gong show for me. Like I usually did it on Sundays, but it's only half an hour a week. And I think I need more than that, but it's good. Like I just kind of like was thinking about things in like a way that like I never have, or I allow myself to kind of like venture. Like when I have a thought, I can kind of explore it a little bit deeper. So it was really cool. And I was I was just like debating different things in my head. Like I haven't had I thought like I'd do it in by like 20 minutes and I have like a breakthrough idea of like, oh, I need to do this. But it's like not necessarily that, but sometimes I'm literally just like thinking about things that I do and like why I do certain things. Or like I was curious because like, does the content I consume influence what I create, or does what I create influence what I consume? You know what I mean? Because like when I was vlogging, I was watching Peter McKinnon and like Chris Howe and all those guys. And was I vlogging because I watched them, or was because my interest at the time was vlogging and filmmaking? That's why I watched these guys. And I was like trying to debate in my head whether which was which, because I didn't know. So it's good. Like, and I wouldn't have had that like inner dialogue and that thought process had I not locked myself away for half an hour.
Shit, yeah, that's really interesting. I
smart,
don't know the answer to that, but
right?
my alternative is that is like that's what I normally do when I'm driving.
Interesting.
I don't have a notepad or anything.
Yeah, of course.
But worst case, if I think of something, hey, I don't want to say it out loud because it's gonna go off, but like I'll just click record on my phone and then just say out what I have to say.
True.
So that later on you can go back and watch it.
Yeah.
It's listen to it type of thing. But like, yeah, that's what I do when I'm driving. Just get lost in my head.
Yeah.
Which can be a dangerous place.
Yeah, a little bit. It's like when you're driving and you get to your destination, you're like,
how the fuck did I get here?
What? Did I blow every red light on the way here? What is going on?
Always, man.
Like, did I hit a poor old woman? I hope everyone is okay. You know what I mean? Like, I totally know what you're saying. Like, I sold my car, so I don't get that anymore. But when I did drive, I know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah,
just
just lost
way
my
too
head,
many times,
ripping
man.
down the highway. Holy shit, I'm going 80 and 100. Damn it.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
oh man.
Yeah, but it's always good to reflect on yourself,
Mhm.
or else like
Well, you don't
you're
grow.
too busy.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're too busy. You don't think about it. Like if you take, like you're saying, like 30 minutes, an hour, just sit back and be like, why am I doing everything? And just like analyze everything you're doing. Like I can do this differently and save time, and like just change the way you do stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think I try to go into it without like an idea of what I want to think about. You know what I mean? I'll just like lay there and be like, and then just kind of like let shit happen. And I feel like sometimes too, though, like I like try to be productive all the time, that like I'm laying there and I'm like, I'm having no good thoughts. This is stupid. Like, why am I having good thoughts? But like, I just need to chill out for a minute and like understand that like I don't always need to be productive. Like you can take a moment to have nothing going on. And like, if I'm not having quote unquote good thoughts that I should write down, that's totally fine too. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But like the also downside of that is you could like overanalyze yourself.
Yeah.
I think, because then they're like, fuck, do I make this move? Do I do this purchase? Like, do I do that? Do I do this? Like,
Just do it.
am I doing this thing wrong? Yeah.
Mhm.
But it comes down
Right?
to like, where it's bad, because then you're like second guessing everything you're about to do.
You just can't.
In a way, if
Yeah.
you're
Yeah,
overanalyzing,
I know what you mean.
you know, like you can come down to a point. Like, I love where this podcast is going right now. It's great. Yeah, like you can overanalyze every single like piece of thing that you're about to do
To an
on like the bad side of it. I'm thinking
to an
you know?
extent, like I haven't really gotten to that point yet, or like, cause like I will write it down, and one thing that I wrote down, cause like I write all these points, it's like a paragraph, and then like I did that a couple times, and then literally the next point I wrote down was like, I need to be more concise with my thoughts. Dot, one line. And it's just like, I also had an idea too, like this is like stealing an idea from a guy I really like, named Steve Bartlett, but it's like he owns this company called Social Chain, which is like this big social media marketing agency based out of Manchester. It's like international. Either way, he has a podcast called Diary of a CEO where he reads the points from his diary. And I was like, I should just fucking do that too, because now that I'm doing this, like, I was like, I should somehow share some of these ideas, because some of these are good ideas. But like, back to what you were saying, is like, I haven't gotten to that point where it's like I'm overanalyzing things, because I feel like I'm always overanalyzing things that I'm doing. Whereas when I'm in that mindset, I'm not overanalyzing. I'm allowed to kind of take a step back and just think things through clearly. And I find I make more decisions and I've kind of come to more conclusions when I'm in that environment than when I'm not, because I'm like in a permanent state of overanalyzing and kind of overthinking. So that allows me to think more clearly.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's exactly what I do.
Yeah, I kind of feel that way too. Like I was saying, like that's what I do with my drives.
Mhm.
I literally just sit down. Okay, what do I want to change about the podcast? What do I want to change about that? What do I want to do here? Like,
Exactly. That's because you're bored when you're driving, and like when you're in the shower, like what else are you gonna do, right? So it's like that's why you
Sing.
come up with your best ideas when you're driving, when you're in the shower, and like I shower at the gym, so I'm like I just want to get out of here as fast as I possibly
yeah.
can. So it's like I don't have that in the shower. I don't drive, so that's why I like force myself to just like get bored and see what happens.
yeah, that's fair. I mean, you can always sing in the shower, like dance. you know?
Yeah, I mean, my
the gym?
girlfriend put our Google
Yeah.
Home in our bathroom, and I was like, oh man. So when I shower at home now, like that's it. Like I just crank tunes
There
and I
you go.
perform.
There's a podcast right
So
there.
Yeah.
Just with video.
Actually, though, like I had an idea at
Yeah,
one point.
that's called porn there.
censored.
I had an idea at one point. Like this was when Musical.ly was still around, and Gary Vee was like, "Yo, get on Musical.ly, like whatever." And I posted some of my sports show clips on there, and nothing happened. But I have a playlist on Spotify that I don't really promote too heavy. It's called Songs for Sunday, and it's like 50 songs. And like if I add 7 songs, I take 7 songs off. So I've just been doing that for like 2 years. There's like 9 subscribers to it. But I was like, what if I just like because I just put my songs for Sunday on in the car and I jam out to these songs. What if I just like record myself, do like a carpool karaoke, and I just like one drive to work one day, I just record myself singing these songs. I can cut them up into like a couple 1-minute clips, and that's my like musically content plan. That was my idea for like a minute, was to actually like record myself just jamming out in the car and post it, but then I never did, and then I sold my car.
Yeah, that's pretty smart. You should well, I don't know, I just said that. You should do it like Caleb Ralston does.
Yeah,
where like you just drop that
Oh,
playlist
Serial?
and
Yeah.
you just like switch things up, you know. Could be another route of things to like go for, because I
Yeah.
know like Gary has his own playlist that'll drop like every Monday or some shit.
Yeah, Monday to Monday is what his is called.
Yeah.
Which I had songs for Sunday before Gary had Monday to Monday, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that
But,
bastard still your idea.
I mean, no, because like, but the thing with that too is like, what's the ROI of having a Spotify playlist? I think like another touch point for your brand. Like, I wouldn't want, with being as busy as I am, I wouldn't want to put as that much like pressure into my songs for Sunday. Like, I have a couple, it's pretty much a couple of my buddies that listen to it. And like our VP of HR at work was like, I saw you tweeted out this playlist. It was really good. And I'm like, I should probably be careful with some of the songs I'm putting on there now. Like the VP of HR is listening to my podcast, or not to my podcast, to my playlist on Spotify.
Whoops.
But I mean, like, I don't listen to any, like, my main music is kind of like weird, and like, I don't know if alternative is the right word, but like, yeah, I don't know. I like my playlist, and like, it's not the end of the world if no one listens to it. Like, I mainly do it so I know where all the current songs I'm feeling right now are. And
Yeah.
I just eventually started sharing it, and that's kind of where it came from.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
I think we should roll into the Instagram questions.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Works for me.
If you guys aren't following us on Instagram at Born to Create Podcast, I'm mainly the one asking questions on my Instagram. So at acef.media, just going to plug that real quick there. Yeah, stay tuned, because we drop polls and ask questions about stuff we should talk about with our guests.
You know what's crazy about your Instagram? Whenever you plug it, I always mishear you.
Like my Instagram?
Every time.
What do you mean?
I hear ACF.
Yeah, that's what I say.
There's an E though, isn't there?
Oh, I say acef. ACEF.
Yeah,
That sounds
I
weird, eh?
every time I hear ACF, I never hear the E, and I'm like, did you just get that wrong? Oh no, I can't.
Yeah.
Every time.
No, yeah, I
every
say acef.media,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. Fuck.
what?
It just clicked in.
Yeah, he
Shit.
hears it now. You'll be able to hear it the same
Yeah.
again. That's my bad.
Shit. Just fucked myself. So Trent.Thompson4 asks, social media creating more lonely society due to the satisfaction of followers/likes.
This is like, it's almost, it comes back to like, is social media good for us or is social media bad for us? And I think it's all in how you use it. I think we're obviously more connected than we ever have been before.
Yeah.
I think there could be a little bit of overconnection, but through, so like, coming from someone like me, I would say it's not making us more lonely, but that's speaking from my experience. Like, we would not be sitting here right now if it wasn't for social media.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
99% of my podcasts wouldn't be through social media. Majority of my friends in Ottawa now are because of social media and people that I've met through my podcast, but most of us come through sending them a DM on Instagram or following people. Like, social media, it might be like, it's just a tough question for me to answer. It's all in how you use it. So is it creating a more lonely society? I want to say no, but that's speaking from my personal experience. And I do think that some people can be lonelier because they're spending more time just on their phones. But at the end of the day, like, what did people do? Like, it's tough because like I wasn't born at this point. But like, what did people do before social when they like, I guess they went out. Oh, fuck, I don't know. Now I'm like thinking, and I'm
Yeah, I know. Like,
I'm going back and forth in my brain as I'm answering this question, and it's like,
no
it's
worries.
good to hear that. Like, I'm kind of skirting around this question, but it's good to have questions like that make me think about things, because I just only know my perspective on it, which is, has it created a lonely environment? Not really,
Yeah.
but it has allowed me to waste more time. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
I think it's more in how, like, and kind of switching to the question of like, is social media bad for us? It's again how you use it. Like, I was on a podcast a little while ago, and the guy was kind of coming at it from like the entire time, like, social media is negative and here's why. And like, I see people doing all this stuff. I'm like, it's all in how you use it. And you can find those communities online. So actually, I'm going to go with my final answer. Is it creating a lonelier society? I don't know, but it shouldn't be, because no matter what your interests are, you can find a pocket on social media of like-minded people that like the same things as you.
Oh yeah. Like, I think it's not just because you can talk to whoever you want whenever you
Mhm.
want, right? So you're not lonely. It might bring you alone. Like at home,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, you might not always be with somebody in terms of like back in the days, you'd always go out and just chill with people, right? You're still chilling with people, but just not with them, which is like, it's just like, it is lonely, is it not?
So I don't know if maybe it's because lonely is the word I'm getting hung up on.
Yeah.
I think we're more connected than we've ever been, but I think it's important to take those connections offline, because I think in-person interaction is still really important.
So much better.
Yeah.
Which is why, like, you and I were talking the way here, I was like, I want to kind of start doing like a social media meetup of people interested in like social media and doing stuff that, like, whether it be working in social or growing on social, like, because Hayden did a talk. I don't know if you guys talked about it on his podcast or not, but he did a talk last week.
Yeah, local talks.
Yeah. And so like we went out after his talk, and we all just kind of went for drinks, hung out. It was like a group of probably like 10, 12 of us, and we just talked social media. And like, I don't party very often because that's not something that I'm too interested in doing. Like, every once in a while I will, but like in May after the 67 season, we went out and celebrated. Just kind of like, my girlfriend threw me a party to celebrate. I fell asleep outside of a pub. I had the worst morning of my entire life the next morning. This was actually a funny story. I'm totally getting off topic, but this was like probably like top 3 worst hangovers of all time. You guys are getting me in a really good headspace right now. This isn't stuff I normally talk about, but this is like one of my top 3 worst hangovers of all time.
Yeah.
And I remember laying on my bathroom floor watching Lil V, because it was the morning Lil V dropped. And I was like literally just like laying on my bathroom floor, like, because it was cold, watching Lil V on my bathroom floor. And I haven't really seriously drank since then, because like I was just like, I don't drink very often to begin with, and when I do drink, like, stupid stuff like that happens, and I'm not interested in that. So, but back to the point of like the in-person interaction. So like, we went with Hayden. Like, I don't like to party very often, but like a group of 10, 12 people talking about social media and having a couple casual drinks, I can do that all day, any day, because like, it's just what I want to talk about all the time. So it's just like, so it's taking those all the way back to taking those social media connections and bringing them offline if you can.
Exactly.
Is that a helicopter going on? I don't know. Whatever.
I don't know.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I'd much prefer to have like conversations or like casual drinks with people in the same mindset. Like, it helps you grow. As well, because you pick up different tips and stuff like that. Like, that's why I love the lunch meetings thing, or even stuff like that. Like, I mean, you go on lunch meetings, talk about podcasts. Now I know more about podcasts. You know, talk about Deepak. Now I know more about podcasts and like other stuff. Just doing that helps so much.
Yeah, it's getting away from those just like the typical like normal conversations. That, I don't know what the specific term is for that shit, but like,
what do you mean?
There's like a normal conversation like, hey, how's it going? How's the weather? Just like typical. I hate those. Like, I can't deal with that. So like, that's why I like just diving deep, like just this podcast where you just talk about whatever you want to talk about, which is interesting.
So I'm curious to see the analytics after this one.
Yeah,
that's what I'm curious about.
Why is that?
Just to see if people listened more, just because we talked about
a wide range of things,
a wide range of stuff.
Yeah.
Or if people enjoy like more specific, like talk about photography, stuff like that. Not that we're gonna change our niche or anything like that. Yeah. But I'm just kind of curious about that.
Yeah. No, this is like, I had no idea what we were gonna talk about. Like, I didn't know like what I wanted to talk about, and like just kind of as we go. Like, there's things I think about, and I'll like, you'll ask me one question and I'll think of something like, oh, I should bring that up. And like, I'll somehow build it into my answer to one question. We'll start talking about that. Like, the 30 minutes of like boredom thing is something that just came to me, and I just kind of threw it into an answer, and that's how that happened.
It looks so good, man. Makes some good content.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Got one more question. What's the most effective way to connect with people and have a meaningful discussion? It's interesting because that's kind of what we're talking about right now. But
have a podcast.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, seriously, like I'll finish a conversation with someone and I'll be like, yo, I don't have conversations like that with any of my friends. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean. And I know I find it all depends on like kind of, for the most part, it's like who you grew up with, you know? So you tend to kind of hang out with them. Like, everyone does different stuff. But like, that's one thing I love about social media, is that like it connects people, like all of us.
Yeah.
Like, me and him met through social media. You know, we can have those conversations. We'll go in the summer, had a couple of drinks here, went biking at 3 a.m, and we literally all were like kind of not drunk, but like buzzed, biking around. We're like, we should literally be recording this because there's so much knowledge that like people might want to hear.
Yeah. And I think too with the podcast too, in terms of like, so what was the question? Like, meaningful conversations?
Yeah, connect with people and have a meaningful discussion.
So to the connect with people part, I probably would have talked to 95% of the people on my podcast if I'd just been like, yo, do you want to grab coffee and talk to me? Like most people are busy. People don't have time for that. But because I'm doing a podcast and it's a documented piece of content that can live online and that they can use, and then people are more likely to say yes.
There's value.
So that's how I'm able to like, that's how you make those connections and meet these people. And then like on a podcast, you need to fill an hour, 2 hours with some form of content. So you're going to get into some pretty deep things, right? Like we meet up for coffee and stuff all the time, but like we haven't talked about some of the stuff we talked about today because we're like trying to fill the content, right? So like you're able to have those meaningful conversations that people aren't necessarily going to talk about when it's like, if you're just meeting up for coffee, you know what I mean? Like, I've never sat down with, like, I try to do coffee news every once in a while. I've never like looked at someone and be like, yo, what's some of the best advice you've ever gotten? Like that's not a question I ask when I go for coffee with someone, but I ask someone that question on a podcast, and that's totally normal. So you're able to have like deeper, more meaningful conversations on a podcast than you can in person. And maybe like if podcasting's not your thing, like do an article, do like a written like an interview, and then you write it down. Maybe you do like a YouTube thing. Like there's like just find a way to like interview someone, like give a reason for people to talk to you, and that just opens the door to talk about so much stuff.
Exactly. And like another thing with like doing lunch meeting stuff, it's hard because you're in public. Like, do you really want to talk about super deep, like kind of personal stuff with people in public, or would you rather do like the comfortability of your own home or at a park or whatever the fuck, you know? So yeah. That's about it for the questions. We got a lot of random emojis.
Two Instagram questions. That's more than I thought.
Not bad.
Shout out to none of the people that I know that left a question.
Yeah, dicks. I got a lot of random emojis and stuff like that, but whatever. I think we should hop into lightning round.
Yeah,
let's do it. Wait, I'm slow. Give me 2 seconds. There you go.
Oh, this flashes the whole time?
Nah, not the whole time. I'm trying to get distracting.
I mean, I don't know, whatever. I was just curious. You can leave it if you want.
But people flip out, right? They'll be like, my eyes.
Yeah, true.
You got better with the lights at the start, and then you just.
Well, it's not in my hand. It's like my pocket knife's in my hand for some reason.
Who are you planning on stabbing right now, bro?
I'm fidgety, bro. I always have to have something in my hands, or else I can't function. It's either that or I'm tapping my foot, which is pretty bad for podcasts.
True.
I mean, this is not better, but hey, whatever.
That's like when I do my remote podcast, I have to like throw my fidget spinner across the room, or like I'll just play with it the whole time. Like, because I just need something to fidget with, so I still use my fidget spinner, and I bought my fidget spinner like just as actually something to like fidget with, not just to like look cool. Yeah. But so like I just have to make sure there's nothing I can like play with when I do a podcast.
No, I feel you on that, man.
Yeah, I'm bad at that. Still trying to get around it, but yeah.
Let's roll into these questions here. Number 1, famous person you'd like to meet or have on the podcast. Actually, we kind of
talked about this already, and it's like, I mean, like I think Gary Vee is the obvious one, but
let's go dead or alive, if that switches stuff up.
Not really.
Okay.
I think it is Gary Vee at this point. Maybe Steve Bartlett. So he's like, I equate him. I used to equate him as a British version of Gary Vee, but he's different. But social media guy, very smart. Talks about things that aren't just social media related. Like Gary talked about parenting. Steve's gotten a lot about like relationships and stuff, but he's someone you should definitely check out. But I think like at this point, like if you give me access to anybody, it would I'd probably have to go Gary.
Yeah, that's fair. Best piece of advice you've received. I do have it written down just so you know.
Yeah. I mean, I'm bad at this, like remembering advice I got. Like whenever I ask people, like, how do you remember advice? Like I honestly I don't remember. Like we went like back to the local talks. Like I took like a substantial amount of notes because that's how my retention works, is like writing it down and then talking about it. And like when I get advice, I don't necessarily write it down. But what I'll kind of use as like my answer to this question is just start. Whatever it is that you're thinking about, or like you're like, oh, it'd be cool if I did this, like just start it. You know what I mean? Like just get into the habit of doing it. And you might not know how to do everything at the beginning, and that's totally fine. I didn't know how to do anything with my podcast when I first started, but like I sat on my podcast I got some gear at Christmas. The podcast didn't launch till the end of July. I like researched and did all this stuff for the podcast preparing, and nothing would have prepared me enough for actually doing it. So just by starting, you're just going to get better by doing it. So stop thinking about whatever it is that you want to think about and just start doing it.
Yeah, like obviously do your research on it a little bit, depending on what you're going into, but starting like this is the second podcast technically that I would have started.
Okay.
Because I'll explain this a little bit. I'll do it. I'll do it now. But basically, I recorded a podcast with our buddy Moose.vision, Don Moosey, and it was just me and him. And it wasn't a bad podcast, but then I thought, like, how do I grow from this? Like, where do I want to go? So I figured it would be smarter if I brought on Frank, because then now we're two, bounce off stuff. We can do episodes on our own. We already talk about most of this stuff anyway, so might as well just record it and see where it takes us, stuff like that. So then that's kind of what came up with Born to Create. I forgot what I called it before. It
was like two guys or two people and a mic.
Yeah,
Some
something like
Two
that.
dudes, one mic.
Or something
Yeah,
like
some
that.
shit. I was
think
like,
I think
it
that's
just
what
sounds like two girls, one cup. I was
Yeah,
like,
it
just
sounds
no,
like-
let's
can't do
not.
that.
Let's not.
Yeah, like that's what another thing that I love is like, shit doesn't work. Try it again.
And then you have 3 mics.
Do it different.
now.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's like my cover art for my podcast. I originally was trying to make the logo a martini glass because for some reason that was social to me. Like, I don't understand why. Like, right now it's Polaroids, which also doesn't make sense, really. Like, and the fact that I take Polaroids, but like that's becoming such a normal thing with podcasts now. Everyone does it. Like, it's not a differentiator for my podcast. So that's like, I need to change that.
Not everyone's got a Polaroid wall though.
No, like I have a binder.
There you go.
That's true. Flex on people with their binders. Third question: morning or night person?
Morning, 100,000%. I crash in the night. Like, you guys are talking like, you're like, yeah, I went to bed at 4, and I'm like, yo, I can't do that. I'd never been too good at that. Like, I get up at 6:30 in the mornings during the week, try to get to the gym before work every day. And then on the weekends I sleep in a little bit more, but then I stress out when I sleep in, and I'm like, it's 8 o'clock. Like, holy shit. Like, I try to get up at like 7:30 on weekends. And like, my big thing with weekends too in the mornings is like, I feel like I waste so much time in the morning because I have all day, and then like it's 2 o'clock and I'm like, I haven't done anything yet. Oh shit. Like, I need to do something now. So it's like my new kick is like, when I get up in the weekends, like, start doing something. Like, don't just like go back to bed, or don't just like lay on the couch. Like, do something. Like, whether it be edit a podcast or make dinner, like make muffins. I don't care what it is. Just do something to start your day, and then get dressed on a weekend morning too. Because like, when I'm in my sweatpants, I'm like, yeah, I can just chill in my sweatpants. But like, if you put jeans on, I'm not gonna go sit on the couch and do nothing. Like, I'm actually gonna do something.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. That's why I like creating a list, right? So like, I'm in bed before I go to bed. I'll just create a list for the next day, or else I won't get up. I'll be like, if I don't have to get up, I'm not going to get up till I wake up.
Yeah.
I 100% relate to that.
Right?
Man.
That's
I
why I'm
started
like-
writing a list every single night.
I need to do better at making my list for the next day, because like I've had like a bunch of different like ways of like how do I structure my like to-do list. And like, I had like a master to-do list for a long time, and I still do, but I was like, this is so like long and daunting. Like, at the end of the day, like, there's still like, I didn't do anything. So then I started doing this thing called top 5, which was like, these are my top 5 most important things I need to do in a day. If I can get these done, I had a productive day. But then like, when I was doing productive things that weren't on my top 5, I felt like I was wasting time. And then I'd like throw things on this top 5 list just to make myself feel like I was being productive. So over the last like 2 weeks, and this kind of thought process came from my boredom time, whatever you want to call it. I started just, whenever I do something that's productive and like genuinely productive, I'll write it down. So like, when I'm making dinner, I used to not feel like I was being productive because I'm not working on my podcast. I'm making dinner. I'm wasting so much time. But like, yo, I need to eat. Like, making dinner is okay. Like, you're doing something that's important. So whenever I like make, like, I'll meal plan or meal prep for the week, like, that's counted as being productive. So whenever I do something that needs to get accomplished, I'll write that down. At the end of the day, instead of being like, this is what I need to accomplish, I look at it like, this is what I have accomplished today. And then I can evaluate from there whether I did enough or if I kind of wasted time. So instead of like structure, like, this is what I have to get done, I just get things done and then look back at the master list of everything I did today.
Yeah, no, I'm a bit of both on that. Like, I used to. This is not a very fast lightning round.
All good.
I'm sorry. It's all good. It's all good. What I used to do is I used to write down what I have to do for the week, and then I would break that down day by day, and run like top 5 type of thing. But I'd also like, add in throughout the day. Oh shit, I need to do this. Like, I need to post on Instagram, or like, it's not productive, but it's something you need to do. It is productive, but not. You know.
And I wanted to ask you, you said I could ask you questions. Like, talk to me about this 2020 goals list you have written behind me.
So I need to redo a decent amount of it, and it's gonna change throughout the whole 2020. But I will just kind of show you guys so you can kind of see what's going on here. But for the most part, like, we talked about this in the Hayden episode, most part, like, pretty much the only one that I can like kind of solidate is for sure happening is me buying a minivan.
Okay.
I was waiting for a laugh on your end, but
I mean, we've went over this subject like so many times for like about half a year. So
that's pretty much like the number one thing that's going to stay on that. Everything else is like stuff that I really want to do, but I find goals tend to change as your
Mhm.
headspace changes. You know, so if my headspace, if I don't want to feel like going to Lake Louise in 2020, well, then I might switch to go to like New York or go to wherever else. Like, I don't know. I find goals are like, it's a hard thing to solidate and try and go for it unless it's like something that you really, really
Mhm.
want to do. You know, like shooting the Red Bull video. Like that's something that I really wanted to do. I worked for it, and technically we have shot a Red Bull video. We shot it for the Red Bull interns for an internal campaign, but it's still for Red Bull. You know,
Mhm.
so like I don't know. For me, it's hard to solidate goals and.
I think that like the most key, like for people listening, the most key thing that you said there was that you wanted to do this Red Bull video and you worked for it. Because there's a big thing of like write your goals down and like that's gonna help them come true. But like
It
yes,
does because it reminds you about it.
it reminds you of it. So it's not just writing it down that's gonna help you achieve that goal. It's writing it down and then following through on the action of writing it down.
And it's not just writing a goal like, okay, by the end of the year I want a minivan. It's like, no, by the end of the year I want to collect 7K or 10 or whatever amount of money you need to get that van. Because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, like I'll be ripped by summertime. No. Like, what do you like a quantifiable goal you want to actually achieve, which is an actual game plan, not just a goal. And then you can actually achieve those plans.
Yeah, sorry to cut you off.
No, it's all good.
But the biggest thing I'd suggest is like write your goals down, but then like break that goal down. Like if you want to be ripped by the summer, I'm gonna work out every single week. I'm gonna work out 3 times a day. That's outrageous, but like
Just track it.
Just track it so you actually know you're making progress towards that goal. Like Red Bull video, a boy works for Red Bull. Start talking to him. We go to Toronto. By chance, the person that was going to film it canceled. Boom, we hopped in. Like
it's writing it down and then
being prepared as well.
Yeah, writing it down and figuring out what you need to do to get there and then actually executing on that.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. If you could live anywhere, where would it be? Number 4.
I want to say New York. But then again, I don't know. Like, I
Well, where do you want to live next? What's your next spot you want to live in?
I don't know. Like, I like Ottawa. If I could, like, honestly, like, where I could live next, I want to say, if I could, nomadically would be my answer. So I don't really have I have a fixed location, like maybe Ottawa is my base, but if I can like float around and like travel around and like have a way of making income remotely where I can float around and not necessarily be tied to Ottawa 365 days a year, I can go and I can travel. Maybe it's living in a van for like a year or something. Like my girlfriend and I have talked about that. Like, do we actually do it? I don't know, but like realistically, it probably costs the same as renting an apartment, buying a van, and then selling the van at the end of the year. But I think specific city, if I have to pick, I would probably say New York just because I like that hustle and the grind that is in that city. And there's just a vibe when you're in that city, something that's like, there's something in the air in New York City.
There's so much culture, bro.
You know what
It's
I mean?
insane.
Like there's just something there that like everyone's working towards something. Like you're on the subway with a billionaire, or maybe not a billionaire, but you're on the subway with like CEOs of companies and like homeless people at the same time. And for the most part, everybody's working towards something and there's something special about that. And that was like, I definitely like, that was that vibe when I was there. So if I had to pick a city, I would probably say New York at this point.
100%. Dinner with 3 celebrities. Who are you picking?
Damn, this is like the first question. You know?
Kind of.
So, okay, well, now that I have 3, throw Gary Vee in there. 3 celebrities. Man. I think you have to throw Gary Vee in there. This is tough. Now I understand all my guests whenever I ask this question, and like, cause I asked this exact question, and they're like, "Oh, whoa, I didn't know I'd have to answer this." And then they like think about it for a while. I'm kind of just stalling right now by saying this.
I know. It's all good. Me and him have answered these questions too, and it took us like at least half an hour.
Yeah, it's like I might go like Gary Vee, Steve Bartlett. I think right now he's just like, you could ask me this question in 2 months, and my answer could change completely.
Oh, 100%.
So yeah. Gary Vee, Steve Bartlett, and like I keep like kind of filtering between a couple people. Like I filter between like maybe Philip DeFranco, maybe LeBron James, maybe The Rock. Like I'm drawn to people that are more, what's the word? I'm blanking on the word right now. Mogul, where they don't just do one thing, they do a bunch of things. Like that's kind of what I'm drawn to. I think a lot of people are drawn to that naturally. But you know, just for the sake of this, we'll say Gary Vee, Steve Bartlett, and Philip DeFranco. I'll just say Phil because, like I said, 7 years of my life is a substantial period, so it'd be nice to actually meet him.
That's fair. Best learning experience so far.
Probably New York. Going to New York, shooting 10 podcasts in 6 days. I would say that was probably a big learning experience. I don't know if that counts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First thing you'd buy if you won $1 million.
Man, I don't know. Like, I'm not too like money driven. You know what I mean? Like, I'm more freedom driven than anything, and trying to figure a way where I could live more freely. Like, I don't need $1 million. If I had $1 million, what would I buy?
If you won $1 million. Like, what's the first thing you'd purchase? That could be like paying rent or something, you know?
Probably just buy some more podcast gear. Maybe just I'd get a space for the podcast.
That's fair.
That's what I would buy.
Yeah. And who would you call if you got put into jail?
My aunt, without a doubt.
Oh, that's the new one.
Yeah. No, I know my aunt is like my best friend.
Okay.
I have like a weird relation, not a weird relation. I have like a special relationship with my aunt where it's like growing up, like she was always like there in a sense. So she was almost like a third parent to me. And like, well, I call my aunt, she'll call me probably 3-4 times a week. We just chat, whatever, all the time. Like,
That's pretty
definitely
sweet.
my aunt would probably be the first person that I call.
That's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Use Mac or PC?
I use a PC. I've never really been a Mac user ever. Yeah.
And what would you tell your younger self?
I'd depends when I'm talking to my younger self.
Like right now, at this specific moment, what would you tell your younger self?
No, but like what
fuck.
like younger self or something. You know what I mean? Like if it was like in high school or whatever, I'd probably explain social media to myself, as like nerdy as an answer as that is. Like, again, we were talking about on the ride here how like I just didn't fully understand the scope of social media. I lived in kind of a small town, so like it wasn't like a thing. Like, I watched YouTube and like, oh, yo, being a YouTuber would be cool. But like that's where that thought process ended. Like, I bought an Elgato capture card to be like a gaming YouTuber, but like I didn't understand what went into it, how to do anything. Like, I think I would just have like a real conversation with myself about the opportunity that's there at this point in time. And that opportunity is still here. So it's like I would tell myself that then, and it's like I probably should have that self-talk now and be like, there's a huge opportunity now, and like you're kind of taking advantage of it. You could be doing a better job.
That's fair. You've survived lightning round.
That's awesome. The slowest lightning I think ever.
This guy still hasn't clicked the lights over here.
Why am I supposed to click the lights now?
Because he survived lightning round, man. Come on.
What color do you want, bud?
Oh my god. Don't even worry about it. It's over. It's too late. It's over.
Hey, it's called post-production.
Yeah, you have fun with that.
I can
Flo.
fix it in post.
Yeah.
Okay there, Elon.
See that? His new truck?
I saw him break the window. Yeah.
Yeah, we can fix it in post. Good fucking luck.
Yeah. So did that happen on purpose?
No.
No, there's a video on why it broke. I didn't really watch it, so I don't know where this story was
Because
going.
he did a lot of tests on it. It didn't break.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, it broke on stage.
No, but
But-
so was that on purpose?
No.
Because we're all talking about it now.
Ooh.
Yeah.
See, I'd throw him on my
See?
dinner meeting.
Elon?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I don't I think Elon's interesting, but like I don't pay attention to him enough for that to be someone that I would throw on my list.
That's fair. Maybe just someone I pick their brain and just ask the most random fucking
Yeah.
questions. Like, then again, you got 3 people to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
So
And like with the 3 people, I'm always curious as to the people when I ask that question, to people that like consider like the dynamics of who's at the table. You know, like I have Ellen and like Gary Vee. Like, is that a good dynamic, or like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
would
Just
the
start
conversation
something
be good? Like, so it's like I kind of thought about it that way as well. So that's
Oh,
kind of
shit.
where I came in with my answers too.
Damn, that's a different way to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because that'd be a great conversation, right? Like, you have to, yeah.
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 Fuck. Do you have any questions for us?
Nothing too crazy, I don't think. I think the 2020 goals one was a big one for me. But more so like, how long do you got? Like, what's the end goal for your podcast? Because like that's something I don't even know with mine.
Fuck, I had this conversation today. I'm trying to remember what I said.
Yeah, because it's like I think about like doing the last podcast and like gives me anxiety. Like, what? The last? What? There's gonna be a last podcast one day.
Yeah,
Is there?
There's got to be, right?
Yeah,
like I can't just do
yeah.
it for the rest of my life, right? So there's
Yeah.
going to be an endpoint, but I don't know when that will be or why that will happen.
Fuck, I
But-
really don't know the end goal. But ideally, like, fuck, I don't know, maybe to just, I guess, impact in a positive way as many people's lives as I can
Mm-hmm.
through like maybe picking up some certain information out of this podcast and like throw it as dark as this goes, like stops them from killing themselves.
Mhm.
You know, just throw that out there, like type of thing. Like just try and like impact in a positive way, like as many lives as I can. Like, you know, we have a wedding guest on or whatever. Oh, I got my first wedding gig. Like something like that. You know, it's just something that I wanted to do, or not speak for myself, something I wanted to do along the route of like creating own personal brand and own business and stuff like that. And like, it's also another great way to connect with people, like we talked about earlier. Like I wouldn't have had these conversations or gained the amount of knowledge that I've gained if we haven't had talks like this on the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your end goal with this?
End goal for this? Shit.
I'll put you on the spot since you don't talk much.
No, I know, eh? Nice and quiet night, bro. Holy. Honestly, not too sure. For like end goal, no idea.
Yeah.
Like, if we have a last podcast, the reason why would be is because I'm too busy
I was
to do a
gonna-
podcast.
I was gonna ask you guys, like, do you guys ever worry about the fact that you guys are gonna get busy soon and that like it could be difficult to keep doing this?
Yes and no. Like I do a little bit, but then again, if it's something we really wanted to do, we'll make time for it.
Yeah.
You know, and like that's kind of why I wanted to take a little 2-week break in the beginning of January, just to try and like bang out as many episodes as we can, because like my goal is to like I want to hit 50 episodes next year.
Yeah.
Which is like that means we can
It's
only
a dope milestone.
Yeah, that means we can only pretty much miss 2 weeks, which is the first.
Oh, you want to do 50 episodes in the year?
Yeah.
Man.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Have
So
I
that's
done that?
that's pretty much us missing the first 2 weeks, and then we have to release one every single week.
Yeah.
So we have no buffer.
Yeah. I think
So
I did that this year.
like my goal.
Because you can nail like 2-3 in a day.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then you're set. Like you're already
Yeah.
set for January and February.
Yeah.
pretty much, so.
Exactly. Like that's why we just need to take one day where we like bang out 3. It's gonna
Mhm.
that day is gonna suck because we're just
Especially
talking
if it's as
all
long
day.
as this one every single one.
Nah, exactly. So like that's why it's good. Like you can kind of shorten podcasts or make them longer depending
Yeah.
on how long you want to talk for and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But yeah, I wanted to hit 30 this year. We're hitting 28,
Okay.
so which isn't bad.
Nope.
Can't complain too off.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's gonna try and hit 50 next year.
Mm.
I'm gonna say we hit 45
Okay, but then why do you have your goal at 50?
because that's the goal I'm aiming for. But I'll be satisfied with 45.
Okay, but I wouldn't be. Because now you're already
You're 5
admitting to
away.
yourself that you're gonna miss.
Yeah, but I know we're gonna miss. Like I understand where you're coming at from this.
Yeah.
But like I want to hit 50. If some shit happens, I have that buffer to hit 45, you know?
But then like why don't you make your goal 45? So that you have the buffer of not doing one every week. And so if you do miss, it's okay. And then
Because I'd rather have it in my head to hit 50 because then you're going to hit 50.
Then
But then-
set a plan in motion to hit 50.
but now you're overpromising and underdelivering. Whereas if you hit 45, if you set the goal at 45 and hit 50, now you're over delivering on that promise instead of being satisfied under delivering.
Yeah, I guess. But like,
You know
I'm
what I
not
mean?
too worried about it. You know?
I know. I just motivation is something I was curious about.
just pushing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we should wrap this up.
Yeah. It's been like
Sounds
2
good.
hours, eh?
It has been 2 hours.
Yep.
That's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Great podcast.
Yeah. No, it really was. I
Glad.
enjoyed this talking about fucking whatever.
Everything.
Yeah.
It's really
dope.
good talk. Thank you so much for coming on, man. Truly appreciate it.
Thank you
The
for having me, man.
long journey to get
Been
out
waiting for
here.
my call.
Where can people find you on social media?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at the Jacob Kelly. Feel free to come and say hello. My DMs are always open. If you'd like to follow the podcast, you can find us on Instagram at My Social Life Podcast or on YouTube by searching up My Social Life.
It's interesting how you like went into podcast mode right there.
That was my outro.
Yeah.
I,
there you
like,
go.
I had a podcast yesterday. I did my outro and I blacked out. I can do my outro without thinking at this point and my intro. Yeah, so that was literally just like I just pulled my podcast outro from my brain and just spat it out right there.
Boom.
That's me for the most part, except for this episode where I drew a blank at the beginning, but it's all good. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Make sure to hit that subscribe button, hit the like, share the podcast. If you're listening to this on iTunes and on Spotify, do rate us 5 stars. It does help a lot. It just helps us grow in the charts as well as reach more content creators and impact more people's lives. Follow us on Instagram at Born to Create Podcast. You can check me out on Instagram at acef.media.
Francois Mittens.
Yeah, you got
Check out the new website. Let me know what you think.
Yeah, facts. Check out my website too. Let me know what you guys think. And stay tuned for a little project that me and Frank got going on in the works.
Yeah. That's going to be a good one.